Everyone who's watching us live, thanks for staying up late. We came in just under where we started to today. It's the Magic Box. I am Tristan Sean Gregson here with my devoted co-host, Kyle the Eck. We've got some special guests today for me. We've got Pro Tour competitor and longtime friend, one of the best men I know. Actually, I know several best men currently here. We have Louis Corso, who's a little washed out from our terrible lighting, but given what it is. We also have his heterosexual life partner. So I guess that would make you Silent Bob, which is kind of the reverse. We have Nick Edwards. There we go. I almost lost your last name in there. Say hi to everyone, both you guys.
Hi.
They're aggressively waving at the screen. So for the 4 people who've shown up currently in the Twitch window, you get to take advantage of that.
That's who they are.
For all you listeners at home and after the fact, they waved aggressively for you guys.
Yeah.
We just started. A big shout out, Usman the Rad. Thanks for staying up late to come hang out with us tonight. Love the Third Power. Hope to guest spot back on that show one of these days. Glad to see it back. Thanks for being out there. Love your Cube content on StarCityGames.com. What feels like every other Monday, he has an article. Check that out if you're not already. But let's jump right into the show here, guys.
We got a lot to talk about.
I'm especially excited to have some guests here. Yes, not just one guest. We have blown our ego through the roof already. We've gone from no guests to 2 guests. That's right.
We've skipped one entirely.
Yeah, we don't want to pan any left or right in Eck's bedroom because it's just here and then the forum, as Eck calls it, because that's where the magic happens. Let's go right into today's pack for our guests. Here we have, and for the people at home, I'll let Eck do a little bit of talking.
All right, so in this pack we've got Borning of Zinyi, Green Sun Zenith, Jace Bellerin, Entomb, Genesis, Harmonize, Packrat, Divine Deflection, Necropotence, Stagger Shock, Void Slime, Aeon Chronicler, Cruel Ultimatum, Chromatic Lantern, and Conqueror's Pledge. And, I mean, my personal preference makes this a pretty straightforward pick for me.
Okay, wait. Eck's personal preference.
I love Chromatic Lantern.
Oh,
I love that deck. I love.
So 5-color control is where you want to be here.
I mean, it's certainly one of my favorite decks to draft, and this is like a relatively low-powered pack. Like, there's nothing that really jumps out at me that I'm really thrilled to be playing. There's a lot of super, super heavy color commitments in Conqueror's Pledge and Necro and Cruel Ultimatum.
First pick in Cruel Ultimatum is
it's bold.
Quite bold. I think that by taking Chromatic Lantern, you actually have the opportunity to get the Cruel Ultimatum back and do cool stuff with it.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not going to lie, this pack is like half loaded gun and half just kind of randoms. There were a couple cards in here I definitely wanted to kind of tease people with to see what their feelings were on and kind of open up the forum to talk a little bit about. Let's bring it to the back of the room. You guys were at Cube League tonight. You drafted. I don't know how many of these cards you saw, but let's go ahead. Nick, what jumps out at you? Not a definitive, I'm definitely taking this, unless you already feel that way.
I mean, I feel like Green Sun Zenith, it's interesting because, if you're kind of trying to draft that deck, that it's a good one, but the problems I see, just Harmonize and Genesis are also in the pack, which kind of makes it hard for you to, genuinely get that working for you. But I definitely like X pick. It leaves you wide open.
Chromatic Lantern, I will definitely say it is the safest card to take. If you're afraid of commitment, if you're a single man out on the town, Chromatic Lantern, I can get behind that. Louis, do you have strong feelings?
Well, it's super odd because this is the kind of thing that would be a really good second pack. Because by the time you get there, you know what you're doing.
Agreed. If you open this up in pack 2, I drafted a lot of aggressive black cards. Yeah. I'm a really aggressive deck that wants Packrat. I'm a control deck that wants Necropotence. I'm a Reanimator deck that wants Entomb. I'm a green deck that wants Green Sun Zenith. I'm a white deck that wants Conqueror's Pledge. Yeah, knowing your identity ahead of time.
But I think the cards that really stand out, I think Green Sun Zenith is the best green card in the pack. Because it just whatever green guys you get later, you can get with it. The other cards that I really like are Packrat because it's super powerful. Stagger Shock because it locks you into mono red, which can be really, really good.
Stagger Shock doesn't lock.
It doesn't lock.
No, but I mean, it can send you that direction. Nobody else is going to go into mono red seeing this pack next, right? You're going to start to send a signal that red's not there, I guess.
That could certainly be the goal.
You're leaving behind. You're leaving behind effectively one red card. But I would almost say you're leaving behind like half of a red card because Wildfire is going to find a very specific
It's a
home.
not the same deck.
It's
Yeah.
that's not like
And like
red strategy.
Stagger Shock is also sweet. Like even if you don't end up as being like a mono red aggressive deck, like it's also just good removal.
Oh, Stagger Shock is a card that other red cards try to model itself after. I mean, we could go on a soliloquy about how, it's Flame Javelin against your opponent at some times, it's Electrolyze, go big against other opponents at other times. It does a lot of stuff. It's very versatile and it only costs 1 red. It's an instant. It's everything you want. So in that regard, I like cards like Green Sun Zenith, Entomb, Stagger Shock, even Divine Deflection in this in this pack being only one color to a color, so you're not like, oh, I'm taking a double or worse yet, triple colored card out of this pack. I'm going to be definitely committing to a color.
As powerful as like a card like Necropotence is, it's not something that I would first pick, just because like
it would be very bold to make that.
It's certainly good, but it's more one of those things like if you already have a bunch of black cards, Necro is sweet, but taking Necro and then trying to hope that you get a bunch of sweet black cards to go with it feels like a much more risky maneuver.
Well, the other card I kind of like that I've drafted in the past is Aeon Chronicler. I think it's pretty powerful for the just draw an extra card every turn effect, and it's usually a pretty big guy too. And I've also splashed it a lot because it only costs 1 blue mana. Or does it cost 2?
No, it's 1.
Well,
Okay,
it's
that's
2
what I thought.
to
But-
cast.
Right, but you never actually cast
Right,
it.
right.
And just to draw a few extra cards and get a big guy.
Semantics. Yeah, I mean, this pack is loaded in regard to there's a single green card that's very powerful, a single black card that's very powerful. I consider a single red card that's very powerful, a single black card that's powerful, and a single blue card, which looks a little unassuming, but is powerful. The real question is here, if you're taking Aeon Chronicler, why would you be taking it over Jace Beleren? What's wrong with Jace Beleren?
Nothing's wrong with Jace Beleren. I just think Aeon Chronicler is more splashable, and so
That's
I
certainly
want to
true.
stay a little bit more open than Jace would let me.
I like that argument. I definitely see, as soon as this pack popped up over in the chat window, Usman was pretty into Jace. I don't know if we've changed his opinion or anything in the minutes we've been talking. It's a Planeswalker. It's double blue, but it is very powerful. He's taking it early better.
See, like, to me, like, if I want to play blue, I want to take the Jace here. If it's like the problem with like a lot of the cards is like, yeah, there are multiple of like certain colors, but like one card is pretty strongly that you're going to take over the other ones. Like, if you're going to play green, or if you want to play green, like, even though there's a Harmonize and a Genesis in the pack, you're effectively ignoring them because Green Sun Zenith is just better.
Yeah.
Like, if you want to play black, you're taking Pack Rat, not Necropotence.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you like, the pack is deceptively has a surprisingly small actual number of options because certain things are just so like clearly either outclassed or just like that don't make sense to take first.
I will give you that, and that is what makes this an excellent pack. Now, one argument I would give towards a pro Aeon Chronicler route to take a Bloom card would be, it's fairly likely you can get that Burning Azenia to table. And if it doesn't, I think that's going to actually tell you a lot about the makeup of the draft.
Yeah.
And those two cards are going to work really well together. Now, talking about scenarios, we've talked about in the past on the cast, and we'll talk about more in the future about how Burning Azenia and Wildfire type effects, we want cards to work really well with them. And Aeon Chronicler is one of those cards. And it might be deceptive because you're probably going to have to suspend it for 2 and not 1.
At the same time, so is Chromatic Lantern.
Agreed.
Yeah, and it leaves you a little bit more open. To
Like
your Lantern too.
Chromatic Lantern, like obviously because it's colorless, it doesn't commit you, but you can really go a lot of different directions in the course of the draft and the way this pack comes back. Like, you could assume that Cruel Ultimatum will come back, but Burning Azenia might also come back, and then you could just go into the Wildfire deck instead.
More options.
Yeah, like Chromatic Lantern is like just the quintessential like delay the decision making process until you have more information, which I am a huge fan of in Cube. Like, I really like taking mana fixing and artifacts highly.
I mean, in the draft we did in League tonight, your first 3 picks were colorless, right?
My first pick was Skull Clamp, my second pick was Chromatic Lantern, and my third pick was Sword of Fire and Ice. And then in the fourth pack, I took...
let's leave it a mystery from there, because again, with those 3 cards, you could play almost any deck.
Yeah.
I will give you that. So the last thing I will end on, if you guys are what seems like a consensus is kind of being made towards Chromatic Lantern, although I got to be honest. I think I would make my decision based on who was sitting around me.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I know those players don't like Reanimator. I'll take the Entomb. Or like, oh, I know they usually draft mono red or mono blue. I'm gonna take that Green Sun Zenith. Let's not talk about those things. Let's talk about how you evaluate a card like Chromatic Lantern. Is it a 3-mana accelerant? Is it purely a fixer? What is it to you guys? Because there's a lot of talk about cards like Key Runes not being good enough in Cube because you're paying 3 mana to get an accelerant. Are those what those cards are?
I think it's just Chromatic Lantern just does. It's a lot like when we talked about our favorite cards. I had Coalition Relic and Chromatic Lantern in a tie because both of what those cards do is so effective in terms of letting you do anything you want, in terms of casting the craziest, most powerful spells. You don't have to necessarily worry about your color commitments as much when you have multiple effects and you back it up with some dual lands or some other fixing. I think it's just like, it lets you just play the most efficient cards you have or the most powerful cards you have with very little regard for worrying about your draws, which I think is just really powerful, especially in a format like Cube, where you could theoretically play a deck that has, with Chromatic Lantern, like, I wouldn't be opposed to playing a deck that has, like, Necropotence and multiple other, like, a double black spell and a double green spell.
Maybe. I mean, you're putting a lot of...
Cruel Ultimatum.
Yeah.
You're
putting a lot of emphasis on one artifact to be able to do those things for you, and I still think you're needing to evaluate cards differently based on it.
But I mean, like...
But what you're boiling it down, what you're saying is the effect is strong enough, and you're not looking at it like a 3-mana rock. You're looking at it like this kind of like Celestial Dawn type card, where once you resolve it, life is easy.
I was going to say, I've always looked at Chromatic Lantern differently than Coalition Relic as more of like a fixing card than an acceleration type card. It lets you do really sweet stuff later in the game from the turn that you've cast it, whereas a lot of times I've felt like Coalition Relic will let me cast a 5-drop, but it doesn't do as many exciting things as Chromatic Lantern after that.
It doesn't fix as well, but it just jumps you so far ahead in the curve.
Coalition Relic is very often known from going to 4 to 6.
Right, turn 4 Titans with one card.
Chromatic Lantern is a very different card.
Yeah.
So, at the end of the day, let's go around the actual roundtable this time and make some individual picks. Eck?
Chromatic Lantern.
Chromatic Lantern.
Yeah. I really like Green Sun Zenith.
Green Sun Zenith, that's fine. There's no wrong answers. It's Cube.
I take Lantern.
We've changed from... were you going to say Aeon Chronicler before?
I was not.
You think we've swayed you, or...?
When I looked at it, the first point I was looking at Lantern and Burning and Green Sun Zenith and Pack Rat, I think were probably what I was going to do. And I think Lantern with the hope of wheeling Burning or Cruel Ultimatum is a sweet
that
way
is
to
a sweet
open.
prospect.
Again, looking at just in terms of the anatomy of the pack, assuming, we talk mostly in terms of 8-man booster drafts, taking that Chromatic Lantern means that, let's say you see Burning come back, let's say you see Chronicler come back, let's say you see Necro come back, let's say you see Cruel Ultimatum come back, any of these things, you could be in a place to take any of them, play them, and have it be effective. For me, it makes it hard not to take Lantern as much as I want to take Green Sun Zenith. I am also one of those people that's desperately trying to put Necropotence in all of my decks. Few things feel better, especially when you get paired against the control opponent, of being like, land it, draw 6.
I also really, I think Pack Rat's a fine pick out of this. I know none of us really decided on that, but Pack Rat's really powerful, and it's also good in a number of different decks.
Well,
it's not just a black aggro card.
Super
I agree.
splashable.
Yeah, blue-black control decks, I've seen this card be very successful in, just where you're gonna have better card advantage. You're gonna have cards to make it a turn 7 play and have it be very good. Those things said, I'm going to end up in the Chromatic Lantern camp here, just kind of in a vacuum, because another thing for me is I want to have the most options possible. So that was a very excellent pack for today. Let's all frame up so people can see us. Yeah. But let's talk about today's main topic. Today's main topic, last week, for the 4 of you that remember, we talked about the allied guilds of Ravnica, since Ravnica is all the rage right now, and we're talking about the broadest sense of cube terms and cube drafting, what kind of archetypes work well for those color combinations, what things have been successful, what we like, and how we evaluate them in draft.
So this week we're going to do enemy killers.
Because last week was allied killers.
So let's get right into it. We'll start with Boros.
The Boros. Now, I would say, when drafting red, white, and cube, there's probably 2 distinct deck types?
I would say 2.
2. Yeah.
Now, Lewis is kind of our Boros resident expert.
It's true.
There was a point in his life where he was collecting lightning helixes.
He's wearing a Boros Guild pin at the moment.
I know. He made it very important that we as it's now covered by the screen in the Boros
Yeah,
picture.
well,
Now it looks like you're wearing
it's
a
actually
giant
it's
Boros
magnified,
head.
is what it is.
Yeah, there we go, exactly. And for the people listening to this after the fact, none of these things matter. So I'll let Lewis kind of open the floor on this one. What would you say is the number one most successful, in your hands or other people's hands, that you've seen Boros deck?
In my experience, the most successful is an aggro deck, so like an initial low curve with creatures like Figure of Destiny and other low red and white drop creatures, paired with some burn, but also a few larger finishers. So those are usually things like Baneslayer Angel, Devil's Play, like burn spells, because you can usually deal a decent amount of damage with your early guys, but they end up being too small to finish the game off. So those late drops will come in and...
So would you say Devil's Play more than a card, let's say, like Demon Fire?
No, I mean not Devil's Play specifically. I think that they're all... Any of those
kind of fireball type cards.
Yeah.
Okay, because in a show previously we were debating Devil's Play versus cards like
I would say...
Because we don't currently play Devil's Play. That's the only reason I'm bringing it up.
Oh, okay. I would say Demon Fire, Bane Fire, yeah, definitely better than Devil's Play, obviously. But you would take either of those for sure.
Sure. The point is that you're finding a way to finish the game with Fireball if you can't find a way to finish the game with cards like Figure of Destiny, Goblin Guide, Savannah Lions, and or Baneslayer.
Well, and it got that archetype actually I think got a little better too with Firemane Angel in the new set. Like it's just another lower aggressive drop that can push through a little extra damage.
There was a lot of debate about where Firemane Avenger.
Sorry,
Firemane Avenger.
Yeah, it's a different card.
Should be included in Cube, and I really like it.
I think it's sweet.
It's been sweet.
I mean, Phantom Monster, as we've learned in Magic's history, is an above-average Magic card.
Yeah.
And this one, Battlecry is one of those things... Not Battlecry, Battalion, since we are stepping over as many cards as we possibly can here, is not only underestimated, but just completely unexpected in Cube Draft. Like when you draft Gatecrash, you know it's coming.
The problem with Battlecry as a mechanic...
You mean Battalion?
Ah, God.
There we go.
Me doing it too. Problem with Battalion is that, like, a lot of the cards with Battalion are pretty awful unless you're triggering their Battalion effect. Whereas, like, Firemane Avenger...
Yes. You can just call it Phantom Monster.
Sure. Is sweet even if you don't... Like, it's still a 3-power flyer for 4.
Yeah.
Like, it's fine even if you're not lightning helixing every turn.
And even if I'm depressed about how bad I'm doing in a game, that artwork in foil looks so sweet that I forgive it.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's okay. So let's talk about the curve of a Boros aggro deck. Where is the top end? Because in the allied guilds we really talked about, especially in the aggressive decks, kind of where you want to top out as. So that's going to kind of help you with how many lands you're going to play, how many mana sources you're going to play. In a Boros aggressive deck, since you're talking about not only playing the Savannah Lion type creatures, but you're also talking about playing Fireball type cards.
Yeah.
Where do you want the top of your curve to be?
Generally, Baneslayer Angel, like I said, and maybe Inferno Titan. So like 1 6-drop at the most,
What
and
about Thundermont Hellkite?
a couple of
that's 5.
A couple of 5
Yeah,
drops. Yeah.
okay.
So like Baneslayer Angel, Thundermont.
You're still going to play Gideon Juro.
Yeah.
Sure. yeah. But though you don't need a ton of those guys, but I think like 2 to 3 5s and 1 6, and then a bunch of 4s, 3s, and 2s.
Because you have no fear of using that Fireball on a threat that's in your way from attacking the Savannah Lions.
No, it's like the same thing as Firemane Avenger. It's just like you often attack with all your guys and kill at a guy with the Lightning Helix ability just so you can get more damage through. So I have no problem. And that would be one argument for adding Devil's Play, actually, is like you can throw it at a guy early in Boros and then use it to dome them
We
later.
had a mildly heated debate about Demon Fire versus Devil's Play.
Yeah.
Currently, Demon Fire's in the queue and may become Devil's Play during the next update.
But so probably 4 or less cards that cost greater than 4 mana.
Completely agree.
Yeah.
I think you've kind of hit this one's nails on the head here.
I think Boros is, especially because, like, the white side of the creatures are pretty usually kind of vanilla, like Savannah Lions, Isamaru, Elite Vanguard. Like, those are all cards you want to play, but in the late game they're pretty god awful. So, like, equipment's really good.
Yes. Yeah.
Like cards like Bone Splitter, being able to, like, turn your little crummy dudes into, like, at least being able to, like, trade up if need be, or it's not even necessarily about, like, forcing through more damage. It's just, like, making more of your spells relevant after, like, turn 4.
Yeah.
And, like, not every aggressive deck has that issue. Like, especially the more red you are, the better a lot of the cards are late game. Stuff like Grim Lavamancer, Magus of the Scroll, like those are cards you're going to play in this kind of deck,
Right.
and they're much better late game.
Right.
Like you don't have to worry about it as much. So
Well, and the Boros deck is also the deck I think that gains the most from the red land destruction spells too, because the white creatures are so weak. Like, just being able to set back your opponent that extra turn where you can keep attacking them with your Savannah Lions and your Samurai the Pale Curtain, whatever kind of 2-drop you have, is really, really nice and can be the extra turn that you need to get it done. So.
Yeah, Eck can. It's in the info. Yeah, our cube list is in the info. You can find it on the info side of the Twitch page. Might as well take a moment to plug the spots you can find Eck's holes. I mean, what? If you go to eckhamon.com.
No.
No.
Egmont.blogspot.com.
You're going to find all the show information.
It's on iTunes. It's on Twitch TV, Twitter. It's
YouTube.
kind of linked to YouTube.
Yeah, you can rewatch all this hot live action.
MTG Cast now.
We're currently on MTG Cast. Thanks again to MTG Cast.
It might be a little bit behind, but
Yeah,
yeah.
they're slowly catching up.
Yeah.
For every
So-
one they put out, they're putting out like 1.5.
Mana fixing in red white.
There we go. Eck is right on top of it. We're going to the metrics. On a scale of 1 to 10 in a Boros aggressive deck, how highly are you going to take in mana fixing? And as soon as you answer, I'm going to have something to interject here.
Not very highly.
Not very highly. Nick, you want to use the metric? Eck was having difficulty with this last week. Between 1 and 10, choose a number.
I guess I'll go with a 5, a neutral 5.
A neutral 5. Like
Yeah.
you might take that Arid Mesa.
Exactly.
But you're not like, I have to have this Arid Mesa.
Well, I mean,
and you're not
depends.
also seeing that Arid Mesa being like, don't need that Arid Mesa.
Well, I'm not very familiar with your cube, but are there the landfall creatures in it?
We just cut them recently.
Oh, okay.
We could change it. We could say Rugged
yeah.
Prairie.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fine. A neutral 5, I can get behind that.
All right, I can answer the question now. So I would say probably a 2 or 3.
Okay, pretty low.
Reason being that I don't think that many people often want the red-white land, so I think that they will table more often
That
than
is
some
an
of the other
interesting
lands.
angle
Yeah.
we do not get to hear of as much.
And also, red-white, it's true, a lot of the cards will want, like, a lot of the white cards will want 2 white, but most of the red cards will only want 1 red. So
Have you ever drafted a Boros deck that's had Ball Lightning, Hero of Bladehold, Conqueror's Pledge?
No, I've never. I don't think of Ball Lightning as a red-white card.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't generally think of the heavier red cards, with the exception of something like Molten Rain or some of the disruption spells.
Firecat seems okay.
Maybe. I usually don't think of the heavier red cards as being Boros cards.
I think the better, like you said, Hero of Bladehold, I would say like Hero of Oxid Ridge.
Yeah.
Like the kind of where red white really wants out of red is in terms of the guys, either like stuff like, you know, Goblin Guide, Jack Republic, the little dudes, but also like this sweet kind of like Hell Rider, Hero of Oxid Ridge, kind of the champion, like the mid-rangey kind of guys. Like
Yeah, out of a Boros deck, anything that costs 4 mana is going to be very impactful.
Yeah.
Anything at that mana cost. If it's Avalanche Riders, Flames on Kavu, Keldon Champion, Hero Blade Hold, Hero of Oxid Ridge, Fire Marine Avenger, and Johnny Vengeance, any of these cards are huge.
Yeah.
I will interject talking about mana fixing. It's very rare in Cube that there is a land that is very narrow, because we want lands to be very, very good. But Slayer's Stronghold is effing huge in
Yeah,
the
that
Boros
card's
archetype and
eating.
massive in the aggressive deck.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about giving reach that you just don't expect, and talk about something that almost seems really key. Sam is here, by the way, if you want to say hi. Really key to giving reach and kind of card advantage to a color combination that doesn't have a draw 3.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I've never actually played with Slayer Stronghold in Boros.
Never?
I have yet
Wow.
to do it.
And this is a guy that drafts Boros all the time.
But again, I don't draft the archetype that I think is the best Boros archetype very often, so we could probably talk about that more.
Okay,
but-
all right. So that we're getting just a touch bit ahead of ourselves. Let's talk about the other metric we're using here. Now we've talked about mana fixing. Let's talk about key cards in the draft sequence. Because this is the most common question. You know, sure, you guys will do first picks. We get it. This card is good. What cards have I drafted or would I draft in my pool that are going to tell me, oh, I should probably be looking to draft aggressive Boros.
Okay.
And I come to you again here, Lewis. You're probably going to be shutting up a lot later, but the floor is yours here.
I think any of the red burn spells that deal 3 damage, so like Lightning Helix, Lightning Bolt, those...
Searing Blade.
Yeah, even Searing Blade.
Stagger Shock.
Yeah, those Stagger Shock is a good example.
Flame Javelin.
Those cards, Yes, Flame Javelin. I've played that.
You will
before,
accept
too.
that
Yeah.
as an answer?
Yeah, but those cards.
You've cast them all. That's not the point.
But those cards, like, they go in the red burn deck, but the burn deck is not something I think a lot of people look to go to, so you might see them a little bit later, and they're nice things to pick up in the middle of the draft to go down the Boros road.
Yeah, we're talking about Boros specifically. So you've named a lot of wonderful red
I mean,
decks.
obviously figure, like, that's a very obvious one.
yeah.
I think, like, having more, like, you need, like, a pretty high threshold of 1 mana, 2 power guys, because you always want to start a game with a 2 power guy for 1. Like, any game where you don't, it's going to be much more difficult for you to win.
And the red and white color combination is the strongest color combination, in our cube at least, of 1-drops.
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
are
for
also
sure.
going to be effective.
Yeah.
You have
Ismar,
Jackal Pup on the red side.
Rakdos
Savannah
Tackler,
Lions, Grim Lavamancer,
Goblin Guy.
Goblin Guy.
Yeah.
And the other thing, like you were mentioning, is the 4-drops too. The Boros 4-drops are usually like that's the turn that you make the impact that's probably going to win the game because you got like Hero,
FTK,
FTK, Hellrider, all the ones you mentioned earlier. Like all those guys are going to have the biggest impact of any of your creatures, pretty much.
Now, Sam has commented, would you most commonly and ideally want white creatures, red spells?
Yes, except for I think as you go further up the curve, you want more red creatures. So, like, the red 4-drops are better than the white 4-drops, but your early drops, you generally want the white guys, I would say.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. Other than, like, Goblin Guide being the outlier.
Right.
Because Goblin Guide's just way too good.
Right.
But, like, the tiny white aggressive guys really benefit from a handful of Burst Lightnings and, Searing Spear and even stuff like that just to clear the way.
I think the other thing I would interject here, I think is probably the number one most underrated card when evaluating for a Boros aggressive deck now. I think I could make it more narrow, but I'm not going to. Would be a card like Flicker Wisp.
Yeah.
Talk about a 3-power flyer for 3 that you can just land on turn 3, maybe clear an opponent's blocker, or reset Flametongue Kavu, reset
Blade Splicer, which we haven't talked about. Is a good one.
Again, when we're talking about white, kind of in the general, 3-drops are really key there. We've mentioned that before.
Yeah.
There's a card. If you're looking to draft Boros aggressive, let's say you got Chain Lightning into Goblin Guide, and then you got Blade Splicer, and then the next pack you see Flicker Wisp.
Flicker Wisp is a sweet one.
Yeah.
All right, now let's go ahead and move on to the other.
Yeah.
This is the Lewis special here. Go ahead and lead us in. What would you call this?
This is Greater Gargadon. Armageddon. Okay, Armageddon is really what I'm thinking
If
about.
you were to
when I think
name
about
this a thing,
it is red, white, land. I just think of it as like land destruction. Like you get a small board presence, or you get something sitting out there like Greater Gargadon that's going to kill your opponent eventually, and then you just like cast Geddon or cast a Johnny Vengeant
Or cast Balance.
It's just some or
Or
cast
cast
balance.
Balance.
Balance is a perfect example of the
It's
kind of
so
card this
messed
deck
up.
wants, where you just clear the whole board and then swing in with a big dude or
a Johnny the Mount.
or Johnny and it could be like Planeswalkers. That's what I think of as this red white.
There we go.
So
Red White Planeswalker.
yeah, so you're like Elspeth, particularly the 4-drop Elspeth.
Gideon Jura.
Gideon Jura. You cast some of those guys, and then you cast either
Jackal
Wildfire, Balance,
Hops.
Jackal Hops, Armageddon, Devastation.
Even just Wrath of God and or Armageddon, depending on what your opponent's playing.
any of these things.
Any of these
Back
cards
to
would be
back.
good.
Yeah.
So it's a big white red deck. You could call it kind of obliterate deck kind of
Right.
things.
Yeah.
That's what we're looking at. Yes, similar to the blue-white control decks, where we often talk about nowadays Planeswalkers being the win conditions. White's Planeswalkers are win conditions unto themselves. They're not role players.
No.
They're not creature makers. Well, I mean they are. They're not the Garriks of the world. They are tools unto themselves. And even Gideon Champion of Justice, as much crap as that guy keeps taking, this is a deck where he's excellent because he can just be.
Right. Well, and he doesn't. This deck really is built around like parity sweepers.
Yeah.
Destroying all the lands, destroying all the creatures, destroying all the whatever permanents, like resetting both players, and none of those things ever hit Planeswalkers.
Right.
So you just completely break the balance, no pun intended, on cards like that. Where you just, if you can sack everything to Gargadon or different stuff like that, and then just ride
that
whatever
thing, that
random-
really good threat to victory.
Yeah.
It's good to point out here that and that's one of the reasons Cataclysm was cut from Cube recently. Is it
Yeah.
just didn't find a white deck it played well with, and it
Yeah.
killed your planeswalkers.
Yeah.
Yeah, that came up
Sacrificing
recently.
the rest
Yeah.
is really brutal.
And there have been too many times where new players of the game get discouraged when they're like, "Oh, I got this Cataclysm," and they're like, "Well, now you have to sacrifice your Jace." What?
That being said, Cataclysm was sweet against the Planeswalker decks
Oh.
because you could clear them out of their walkers.
True, but at the
Like-
cost of like most of your
Like
permanents.
everything else, yeah.
It's like some kind of like strange. What was that red? It just reminds me of that
That's
red card
right.
from. Or I was gonna say those like red cards from Fifth Dawn, where you had to sack two artifacts, destroy an artifact.
Yeah.
Like kill most of your stuff to get their important thing.
Yeah.
Interestingly, if you're planning to draft this deck, the mana fixing gets a lot better. Like,
Moving-
it's more important.
So it's a higher ranking.
Yeah, I would push it closer to like the 6-7 range. Reason
Okay.
being that if you're going to start sacrificing your lands and casting Armageddon and things like that, you want the lands that you do have to produce both your colors.
The
You get
irony-
a lot of double red and double white.
The irony here is that there isn't too much double white, double red early. I mean, maybe you need Wrath of God. Very rarely are you going to have like Slagstorm Wrath of God.
Right.
It's going to be more like, okay, well, I have 17 lands in my deck. 7 of them just went in the bin. It's a good thing I was holding this Sacred Foundry.
Yeah.
right.
Or like this is also the deck where artifact mana is way better.
Yeah.
Like
Absolutely.
any.
So does that would you say that almost makes the mana fixing off of lands less important?
I mean, I think that
Does it help suppress the
you
value?
you need to have reliably red and white early and double red and double white in the middle of the game. However you get that is
Yeah.
fine. Like if you have Rugged Prairie, Sacred Foundry, Plateau, Arid Mesa, sweet. If you have Felwar Stone, Darksteel Ingot, maybe some Vivid Lands, Co-Relic is awesome in this deck.
Much more than a Chromatic Lantern would be.
Yeah.
Right. But like, having like the artifact mana do it instead of your lands do it is also fine because like that's another way to break the parity on Geddon.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you're saying with a 6.5 out of 10 on mana fixing?
Yeah, I would say so.
All right.
Yeah.
Key cards. Now, maybe we've already said all of them. That would lead you into Obliterate Boros, as we're slowly molding towards.
If you open an Armageddon, that's a good start to it. Those are the really key.
Now, it's a top 3 Armageddon deck.
Yeah.
Would you
for
say
sure.
it's the best Armageddon deck? Or would you rather a more creature-based Armageddon deck?
I mean, for my preferences, I think it's more fun, but I wouldn't call it the best Armageddon deck. Yeah,
Alright.
I think blue-white decks with like the creature Armageddon decks, those can be fun, stuff like that.
Okay.
But again, I already mentioned it, but Baneslayer Angel is really awesome in this because it lives through the wildfire, which can be really sweet. And also, life gain gets more important in this one because the games tend to go a lot longer. I was just thinking about... Greater Gargadon is really awesome because it breaks balance and it gives you something to do with your lands when you cast Armageddon. It's a huge threat after you've cast all these things.
You haven't even mentioned Zealous Conscripts.
Yeah, that card is gross. Yeah, that's a sweet one.
Yeah?
And it's sweet with Greater Gargadon as well.
Assuming you don't steal their
As
Planeswalker.
I learned the other day.
Also takes advantage of a certain goblin your opponent might play.
Which goblin is that?
Kiki.
Oh,
yeah. That's a little different.
That may have come up.
But yeah, any of those creatures with 5 toughness can be really big.
That is true. You're probably going to be playing Rolling Earthquake and Earthquake, so
Yeah.
preserving your life total through life gain effects is key there.
Yeah. Oh, the card that is not... I don't think it's in the cube anymore, but that is really awesome in this deck is Yosei.
Yeah,
And-
because you can time walk.
I would really be an advocate for that card coming back for that reason because it makes for some really fun games with this deck in particular.
I like how tapping out your opponent and not letting them untap equals fun games. That's what
We all
like.
have our own opinions of fun.
So, oh gosh, how would you evaluate now? We've talked about cards that you miss in Cube. Talking about kind of one of the new cards in Cube that you might have an affinity for now. Would you evaluate a Zernorb higher then?
Oh yeah, because that's a new one too. I guess I probably would for this for the reasons I've mentioned, which is that it gains life, which can be relevant with the longer games, and it also breaks the parity a little bit with balanced Armageddon and things like that. So that's a pretty powerful effect I hadn't really thought about for the deck because I haven't drafted it yet since these new changes. But I could definitely see if I get a Zernorb in the second or third pack or late in the first pack, like snapping it up and wanting to play it in that deck.
I mean, one of the things about new cards, especially fringe cards you always add in Cube, is you as a Cube creator and molder, you're always trying to defend your babies so you don't have to kill them.
That got dark.
Killing babies bad. And Zerno was one of those babies where it's like you have it there for the Necro decks, but anytime you can do anything else and have a positive impact on the game, you're pumping the fist.
I'm just going to throw it out, you're the only one who has it there for the Necro decks. Like, nobody else is casting Necropotence very often. But
people love Necropotence.
It's true.
I'm not the only one who doesn't love Necropotence. Everyone's just kind of come to the conclusion, even Chris Pakula out there, who is all about his Gaia's Skyfolk and other strange cards of that nature.
I don't know.
He loves the Necro.
Question: did you play the Necro Donate deck back in the day?
No.
Okay.
So
I wasn't playing as much competitive Magic during the Black Summer.
I trust that people like Necro. You guys talk more Cube than I do usually, but I'm not a fan.
You're not a fan of Necro at all?
No, it's triple black.
Which you just don't cast.
Yeah.
Moving on from Boros, because we've talked about the things that there are to talk about in Boros, we have the Golgari.
Oh.
Now the Golgari...
Well, there's one deck for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously
There's the obvious deck.
As the obvious deck, okay.
Which is the fun deck.
Are there any other decks that you'd really consider green-black? Now, every time we've talked about green during Allied, which would be twice, we were quick to point out that green often has ramp decks, and ramp decks feel very generic. They don't feel very interesting. They're all the same. Green-black, of all the color combinations you can have, doesn't really feel like it has a ramp deck.
No, because there's nothing worth ramping into in black.
Grave Titan.
Like Grave Titan.
But you don't need to ramp into it. You can play... See, the thing that makes Grave Titan great is you play Magic, and then Grave Titan happens.
Yeah.
And then you win.
I guess I don't think of Golgari as the typical Llanowar Elf into rampant growth type deck. It's not. It's not like the rest of the green.
And it even has its own Llanowar Elf.
Yeah.
If I'm drafting if I have a deck with nothing but swamps and forests in it, it is for one archetype and one archetype only.
But I'm not going to say only. I'm going to say most often. I mean, green-black has Vraska, Abrupt Decay, Maelstrom Pulse, Pernicious Deed in it. Like you've got to think there's a sweet control deck in there somewhere,
Like, you get to play a sweet board control deck that has, very little to no card draw.
And
no permission.
Yavma Elder.
Yeah.
Harmonize.
Yeah.
Yes, Reanimator with a ramp backup plan.
Oh, Jesus.
That's an interesting idea.
Kind of a
I
thing.
mean,
Yeah.
Really, it's Rexer, right?
Yeah.
That's about it.
Well,
What is Rexer?
yes, yeah.
Recurring Nightmare, Survival of the Fittest.
Oh, right, yeah. I thought that was like a EDH general or something.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
I don't know. I don't
We're not
know.
going there.
No, it's
It's obviously a Rexer deck.
the only
Who's Rexer?
time I ever am in black-green is really... And I'm not
The only
saying
time
that-
you're choosing and actively pursuing it.
Right, is when usually because I first picked Survival or Recurring Nightmare. And I'm like, okay, this is
Hunting
what I
for the
want.
other.
Right, the deck
God.
is fine with only one of the two pieces, I would say. Recurring
But
Nightmare
it's not
is more important.
Right, but it's not that deck. I think is what's key. Like a deck with Survival of the Fittest, it can play black because all the animation cards are there, and Survival is just gross
Right.
It is
at making that happen.
messed up.
And you could play a deck with Recurring Nightmare in it, but it's not necessarily green. Sure, green has a lot of sweet value guys like
Yeah.
Frag Tusk, Kitchen Finks, Blood Gas, etc., etc. But you're probably not. You're probably just getting back other things.
It's just that those two cards are so disgusting together.
Yeah.
I guess I actually don't think of Recurring Nightmare as being as good in anything other than a green-black deck.
Well, that's
It
because
seems so much
I think
better.
we can universally agree that's where it's best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But to me, unlike everyone's like, oh, Karma goes to blue card. To me, Recurring Nightmare is not a green card. It's still a black card.
No,
Yeah.
I mean, and it works just because there are so, we joke about how, in the not too distant future, every creature in Cube is going to have an end of the battlefield effect on it.
Every single creature in Magic that's in the cube will come into play and do something.
Right,
Yeah.
so the more of those that exist in Cube, the better Recurring Nightmare gets all the time.
Right. You can just be playing black anything, and every time you activate it, something's going to happen that's positive for you.
Right. And it's just I think that green gives you an abundance of guys to do stupid Recurring Nightmare tricks with. It has Survival and other ways to find creatures if there's a specific one that you want to, play with, so to speak. And black shores up a lot of the traditional problems with base green decks, specifically things like you were talking about, Frasca, Maelstrom Pulse, Abrupt Decay. Green tends to have problems destroying things that are not enchantments or artifacts, so being able to hit a relevant guy that they have, or hit a planeswalker, or even like a land potentially, depending on what cards you're using. Like, it's important. Like, black gives that green deck like an important way to fight fair with other decks, while it's trying to set up like its awesome recurring nightmare engine endgame. You know.
So at this point, we could pretty clearly say that Golgari has one deck that we would define as the popular, good win percentage green-black deck, and that's the Recurring Nightmare, Survival of the Fittest. Those two cards glued together, kind of value cards deck. And I think a product of that is too many times someone drafts like blue-black control splashing green for the cards we mentioned. Green-blue tempo splashing black for removal from the cards we mentioned. A lot of bug iterations will just touch on one of the will play blue and just touch on the green or black color in order to have access to the amazing suite of Abrupt Decay, Pernicious Deed, Maelstrom Pulse, and Nebraska. So yeah, I mean, we might as well talk about Survival Recurring Nightmare. It seems like elementary because it's been in Magic for what feels like so long.
Yeah.
It was even,
It was a deck.
Yeah, it's been around. Once you get those two cards,
game on.
Yeah, I mean, the book almost writes itself at that point. Creatures are good. Ones that do many different things make it better.
I mean, anything that has like the better the end of the battlefield trigger, the more you want it,
and the more diverse. You want a Necrotal. You wouldn't mind a Spike Weaver. You want a Stomp Howler. Genesis goes up in value there, obviously.
Kitchen Things. Pack Rat's also amazing in this deck.
Oh yeah.
Kokusho at the top.
Kokusho's is like it's always sweet in this deck. I always want one like super expensive retarded thing to do, like Sundering Titan or Grave Titan or Kokusho or Palaka Worm or Woodfall Primus or Terastodon or like I want like one like giant, especially because like this deck is so good at being able to fix its like utilize like cards it can't cast right away to do other things. So like it's not like if you draw it early, you're not upset. You're not like, oh god, I'm just gonna.
I have this Palaka Worm in my opening hand.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't have a problem having more than 5 mana.
Acidic Slime, that's a good point.
Acidic Slime,
yeah.
Deranged Hermit, obviously, filthy. Thrag Tusk.
Yeah, that just gets out of hand.
It feels awkward just kind of naming all these cards. We get it.
Yeah.
Sylvan Library goes a little bit higher in my pick order because, again, with the Survival of the Fittest manipulation and the fact that you're kind of playing a bit of a combo deck for Cube, you want to find the pieces.
The tutoring is a lot more relevant.
I mean, it seems kind of very elementary to be like, well, you know what's good. Vampiric Tutor, Demonic Tutor, these cards are good.
In Tune, right?
But like,
even in Tune can be really good.
But like, not every... I mean, obviously, like, every deck, if it has access to Demonic Tutor, is going to play it, right? Demonic Tutor is just a very good Magic card.
Yes.
But, like, certain decks want it more. Like, the less redundant your deck is,
true,
the more you want it. Or
if I'm playing NBA,
the more focused on like individual
still
cards.
Taking DT though, that's the thing that confuses me. Is like DT always gets picked very highly. It's not like someone's like, I'm playing black, but all my cards do the exact same thing. I don't need this Demonic Tutor.
No.
Well, like,
maybe
it would be
maybe.
But like, if your deck is like a giant stack of Carnophages,
right,
like, DT is less relevant.
Well, maybe I want to go get Chainer's Edict, or maybe I want to go get Stupor.
Right, I understand that, but I'm saying, especially if you're trying to build around 1 to 2 specific cards in your deck that you cannot replicate,
right,
the tutors become much, much, much more important.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, I could see theoretically, not that this has ever come up or anything, but like, if you're playing like an aggressive black deck that has a ton of redundancy, it's just a bunch of guys, passing a Demonic Tutor for like a very awesome black something else. Like, if you have just like a giant stack of creatures and a bunch of removal and a bunch of discard already,
potentially.
Like, it's. I'm not saying like that happens all the time. Like, I'm totally passing DT every day, but like, if I'm, a deck like this, I'm never passing anything that couldn't find Recurring Nightmare and Survival of the Fittest. Like, it's almost worth touching into white for Enlightened Tutor.
If you the interesting thing is that you don't always get Survival of the Fittest and Recurring Nightmare, but it's still, the deck kind of plays out similarly, even if you get one or the other.
Yeah, it can.
But DT's value goes up a lot if you don't have one of those two pieces, because all of a sudden you have to actually try to find one of these guys.
You have to find either the discard outlet,
right,
or for your Recurring Nightmare, or you have to find the particular creature.
Right, I was going to say, finding a creature with DT becomes a lot more valuable than it would be otherwise. So
So to that end, I think we definitely mentioned why there aren't other Golgari decks. The ramped creatures of green don't really play well with most of Black's cards, because Black is killing creatures, playing land destruction that's pretty much on the cheap.
And also, I think it's part of it too is that the specifically green-black cards, like the cards that would reward you for explicitly playing green-black, don't necessarily lend themselves to like any one archetype. Like, it's not like aggressive cards, it's not like super late game control win conditions or something. It's just like destroy some permanents. Like, it's very like these kind of even-handed, like go into a lot of decks sort of cards, where as opposed to like other color combinations where it's like they really reward you to do one thing or another.
The exception would be Wall of Roots, which I do think is good in green-black because it can give you a little bit of time to like get your stuff set up. I've always liked it.
Mana fixing on a scale of 1 to 10 for
Pretty
Rexor.
pretty irrelevant, I would say. Like,
Pretty irrelevant?
I mean, like it's something that is going to come naturally by playing in green. Like I never feel like when I'm playing green, I have to go out of my way to find mana fixing of any kind.
I'm pretty amped on taking Twilight Mire, Overgrown Tomb, Bayou, Verdant Catacombs, and Friends. Like, I would give this a 6.5, maybe 7 out of 10, because I want to be able to cast Birds of Paradise on turn 1 or Survival on turn 2, but I also want to be sure I can cast Duress, Thoughtseize, DT as soon as I get them.
I mean, I think it's the more relevant use of the mana fixing is being able to cast Birds and like Wall of Roots early, and then be able to cast Recurring Nightmare 3 times in one turn late game.
Yeah.
Like every black mana you have access to like increases the rate at which you can just be degenerate, which is relevant.
It usually only takes a few activations, but yes, I'll give you that.
I would call it middle of the road, probably around 5, just because, like Eck was saying, I think that green naturally gives you a lot of opportunities to get mana fixing, so you don't have to prioritize it quite as highly as you might.
Yeah, it's like you're playing green. How hard is it for you to pick up like Sakura Trigold
or
or
cultivate,
yeah, Harrow,
something
like? There's just so much of it. It's not hard to find.
The green dual lands are less important in general, yes, I'll give you that. Okay, any last thoughts on the goal? Again, I think we've touched on all the cards you're going to want to pick up.
Recurring Nightmare, Survival of the Fittest.
Your draft order does change. And there's even like hidden gems in this archetype, like cards like Profane Command are huge.
Yeah.
You use Survival.
Profane Command is awesome.
Survival, a key creature to your graveyard at the correct mana cost, to then be able to kill their important guy and get back your equally important guy. Those killings can be very key, but other than that, it's pretty straightforward. I think when I talk about kind of coming up to people's cubes in the dark, if you just kind of come up and cube with somebody you don't know their list at all, I think a deck like Recurring Nightmare is one of the safest decks to draft because you can't not have the cards be there.
Yeah.
Green creatures do this.
Everyone has Recurring
Black
Nightmare.
creatures do this. They all work well together if you get those cards. There you have it.
Also, one last thing, Pack Rat plus Life from Alone. I didn't know about that till today, and that is really
so
sweet.
Dirty.
Yeah.
Mildly related, I guess.
Yeah.
In the Golgari
We're
colors.
Golgari, so I
True.
just figured I would mention
It's
it.
like a mini combo.
Very powerful, yes.
Yeah.
It's gross.
Pack Rat's just sweet in this archetype. Like in general. Like Recurring Nightmare, you turn the token into whatever you discarded.
Yeah.
Like, that's filthy.
Gross.
Like, how is Wild Mongrel in this? Is it like decent, or is it just kind of
I think if you have more of the reanimation cards, it gets a lot better. Like, let's say you get to draft the... Like, that would be... Wild Mongrel is a card that goes up in the pick order when you just have the Survival and maybe Animate Dead, Reanimate, Exhume.
Okay,
Like, all of a sudden, like, now I'm looking for cards like Wild Mongrel. In just having the... I don't know, it works on either side. But you have to have more of the reanimator spells, then that card gets better.
I mean, if you have Mongrel, or, you take Mongrel if you already have, like, Reanimate, or even stuff like Diabolic Servitude.
Yeah.
And...
Diabolic Servitude also cards used
Yeah.
stuff. It goes on and on. Talk about guys with a bunch of Enter the Battlefield triggers, and you now get to get every one of them.
Alright.
Ooh.
The Is It.
Is it an archetype?
Is it indeed? And those are all my Is It jokes.
Yeah.
Counter the classic
Oh, God.
counterburn archetype.
Counterburn Ponza.
Counterburn.
Thank you, Seth.
How is this real?
You forgot to say the classic.
Classic.
We're all familiar with
Is anyone ever happy when they're blue-red?
Since 1993.
Blue-red...
Is anyone ever excited about, like, look at this sick-ass blue-red deck I
yes,
just
there's
drafted?
one person who we drafted with who is. Nathan is very excited about blue-red.
That's true.
Nathan would rather... It's not his first choice, though.
I mean, it's just... My problem with blue-red as a color combination is there's no inherent synergy between the colors other than instance.
Yeah.
Instance as a thing is in both colors.
And even with our cube, Isochron Scepter is not good enough.
No.
No. Okay, let's be nice to Izzet, because we still love it as a guild, and we want people to play it because then we'll win more.
Right.
But generally, when you end up drafting red-blue, it's because something went wrong. The train went off the rails.
It's usually what ends up
You found
happening.
Electrolyze.
What ends
All
up,
the value. I mean, don't get me wrong. Every time I cast that spell, I love it.
what ends up happening is that, because like a lot of times, like one of the decks I really enjoy drafting is like Rug, like red, blue, green.
Okay, tell us more.
Like, you know, the goal is that you have like some blue permissioning card draw with some red removal, and then like green fixing, and then you have like a couple different, you know, Inferno Titan on the top end, or like different stuff like that.
So far, you've just kind of outlined a green-based deck with red and blue cards in it.
Right, because
Yes.
the red and blue are both sweet there. Like the ability to have removal and permission, and or card
I
draw.
mean, don't get me wrong. I would love to have a deck
So,
that
like-
has Cultivate, Lightning Bolt, and Ancestral Recall in it.
Yeah, so like a lot of
Oh,
times,
nice.
like cards like Prophetic Bolt,
Yeah.
or you know, Fire Ice, Is It Charm, stuff like that. You'll end
I
up
think these,
taking.
minus is it? I think these are all cards that were cast on Precursor Golem in the last like 4 days.
Yeah.
So all like cards like that, you'd be like, oh, like sweet, like I want to try and play like this 3-color deck that's red and blue and like either Grixis or like the, you know, some 3-color deck, but then like the fixing never gets there, or like the third color just bottoms out, and you're just stuck with, well, I have all these red and these blue cards. Shit.
I don't think necessarily. I think is it decks happen when you take just all the quality red cards and all the quality blue cards that you see. Like, oh, I saw Lightning Bolt, I'm taking it. Oh, I saw Sylveric Vortex, I'm going to take it. The next pack, I saw Mana Leak and I took it. Then I saw a Counterspell. Then I saw a Cryptic Command.
Right. But that deck's like not any good.
But I think to his point, like you're almost always splashing something else when you're playing the Izzet deck. I feel like
Really?
I feel like anyway.
I mean,
like,
in recent
its win
past...
conditions are not great.
that's why. Like
Well, it's really weird. I mean, that's something one of the things we're going to have to talk about, and kind of talks about all of the blue with something else decks, is the blue doesn't have many creatures.
yeah.
So it's hard.
Snapcaster. Woo.
It's hard to say, like, oh, anytime you pair blue with a color, there's a creature deck.
Right.
Because red-blue is the #1 color combination with the #1 fewest creatures.
Right.
Yeah. Like, you don't want any of Red's aggressive creatures.
It's not that you don't want
No,
them.
you don't want them.
It's just not like blue-white. Like, blue-white, we talk about how Savannah Lions with Mana Leak is really good.
Yeah.
But Goblin Guide with Mana Leak isn't as good. But why? We have to get into that.
I think it's just that, like, Red's cards in general are just... At no point is it interested in playing the long game. Like, yeah, there's, like, late-game spells in Red, but, the majority of the cards in the color are looking to end the game as quickly as possible, and Blue's trying to do the exact opposite thing and play the late game.
The duality of what red does as
It's
a
just
color
too much
cube
tension.
is so bad with blue.
It's so much tension.
So blue
Like,
plays small guys or clones.
Red wants to tap out and put threats on the board, and Blue wants to sit there with all its lands untapped.
Right.
So,
Okay.
like, you just end up with, like,
So Sam brought up a good point, which is the red-blue deck that is kind of interesting is the like Wildfire Artifact deck. I have seen some people draft that where they'll take all the mana fixing and a couple of really good like 1 blue counterspells like Condescend and Power Sink, stuff like that, and just do a couple of things to disrupt your opponent for a little while you play some artifact mana, and then cast Wildfire or cast Upheaval and play a threat and win the game from there. So that is one way to approach Izzet that can be an actual deck.
Which is weird because very few people go... It feels like very few people go into a draft being like, I'm going to take the red cards for upheaval... for a Wildfire deck.
Yeah.
And then get blue cards to support it.
Yeah.
It's not impossible. I just don't see it that often. And, red-blue Wildfire was not only a standard deck, but it was an archetype that was very much more real in Cube in years past.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of times what happens is people set out to draft Blue. either intentionally or unintentionally, like they just end up with like, I took the best card out of my first pack and it was Cryptic Command, and then I took another really good blue card, and then I took another one, and then it like you're getting into like the later picks, like in pack 2, let's say, and I'm like, well, I have this giant pile of blue cards and nothing else.
Right.
Like I need to find a second color, and like the next couple things they see are red, so they kind of like fall backwards into it. I feel like while the Wildfire like Upheaval plan, like that's certainly a deck. I don't know if I've ever seen people really like go out and try and do that.
I mean, one of the things that's awkward about it is things that live through Wildfire aren't things you upheaval into.
Yeah.
Not to say it's impossible.
Yeah.
It's just more difficult.
Upheaval floating 7.
It's just been a really long time since I've seen someone draft Wildfire, Upheaval counterspells. I mean, there's no Magnivore. I think we ran Magnivore like 2-3 years ago.
I guess I'm just thinking Wildfire counterspells. Maybe Upheaval less so in the red-blue. Yeah, I mean...
I just don't see it anymore. I'm not even sure why.
I think it's just that like other cards have gotten better. Well, creatures are always getting better. Yeah,
it's hard to be like, I'll counter your early plays.
It's a hard,
and your mid-range plays get destroyed by.
It's a hard sell to put people to get people to play a deck that is primarily instants and sorceries in the era of creatures being better than any other card type and the best they've ever been. Like creatures keep getting better, and they don't print better instants and sorceries than the ones that are already in cube mostly.
Right.
Like outside of like rare occurrences. So like the decks that are very creature light or have no creatures are constantly getting worse in comparison to everything else. Like blue red could have like certainly in the past has been an archetype. In the past, when creatures overall were worse, but as creatures get better, this deck becomes worse because it's no longer winning the power game.
Right, there's a lot more things that you just can't answer.
Right, you're not taking advantage of the new, better cards in cube.
Right.
Like it's just outmoded.
I guess that makes sense. It's benefited least from the recent sets.
Correct.
And Izzet was one of the guilds or one of the color combinations in cube that had the weakest cards for the longest time.
Oh yeah.
Remember we were Minotaur Sorcerer Man?
Oh
yeah,
Ethereum Horn Sorcerer.
Oh, that thing was horrible.
Wasn't Minotaur Illusionist in at one point?
No.
I try to remember the other
I
ones.
thought it was.
Well, like before Return of Ravnica,
Is
the
the
blue-red
Imperial
cards.
Chemister? Is that in?
No,
That's a sweet one. We should try that.
it's a little off the slow side.
Yeah, I guess.
I mean, maybe over
Passing
Hypersonic
3.
Dragon.
Another play is a Chronarch. So looking at Return to Ravnica, we got Izzet Charm, we got Hypersonic Dragon. There's another card I'm missing. It's gotta be. Because Red Blue got some good cards, didn't it?
Out of the last
Out
set.
of RTR.
I don't recall.
I don't think so.
Particularly.
I mean, it is one of the shallowest guilds. If you want to switch it over to the list, just to double check, make sure we're not missing anything
Yeah,
egregious.
I'm trying to remember.
So, coming back to what Red Blue feels like today, as much as I wish, I mean, like maybe we just need more support. Maybe we need to go into the new Niv Mizzet.
Yeah.
There it is,
There
Mr.
we go.
Draconius.
Old Niv Mizzet used to be a boss. Like he used to be pretty good.
Yeah,
that was like
and here
quite a few years ago.
Here we're living in a world where new Niv Mizzet even lives through Wildfire.
Yeah,
And yet these are things you don't really see that often.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it's just like look at the majority of the kind of cards that Izzet got in Return of Ravnica. Like
Epic Experiment.
Epic Experiment's
Stuff like
kind of
that.
cool, but like
Thought Flare's a good card.
like Counterflux, like
Counterflux is an okay card. Again, Red Blue used to be so bad in Cube, we played double negative.
Double Negative was a card for a
Yeah.
long time.
It was. That's
Long, I don't know about. So yeah, nowadays, Red Blue is pretty much a control deck, and that has a lot to do with the fact that Blue doesn't really have creatures. So all the aggressive red creatures are kind of on their own.
Yeah.
They're all kind of looking at Blue like, hey, help us out. And Blue's like, we'll do stuff later.
Vendilion clicks like, I'll help, but like it's by itself.
Right.
And,
So you don't really see Red Blue. I mean, like, unlike what Simic can offer, unlike what Azorius can offer for creature decks, Red Blue just isn't really there. Now, yeah, it's just like, I mean, we used to play. I can definitely remember decks where I'm like, okay, well, I've got Rorix and Cryptic Command, and I'm going to find a way to make this work.
Yeah.
But nowadays we don't have Rorix. So, it's
Talking about Hellkite?
I just, again, when I think about Izzet, I think about blue-red splashing another color, I'm thinking about cards like Decree of Justice or Tarmogoyf.
Or conversely, like blue-white, blue-green, splashing red's
red,
removal.
sure.
Like, I feel like that's more common.
Yeah.
The thing about the blue-white decks is they're very happy to pick up
Like
Arid Mesa,
Lightning Helix,
Fire Ice.
Lightning Bolt, Chain Lightning.
Like being able to cast like both, like being able to coincidentally cast both sides of Fire Ice, like in your blue-white deck or your blue-black deck or whatever, is sweet.
Yeah.
Or like, you know, just having like lightning bolts is like,
Or Banefire, Demon Fire, like we were talking
yeah,
about too.
yeah. I just blue-red just never.
I mean, I drafted it like probably 6 weeks ago.
I mean, Nathan drafted it.
No, but it never 3-0s a draft. It
just-
never is like a clear heads and shoulders above the rest of the decks at the table.
I'm never excited by it. I'm never like, look at all these sweet plays I'm making with this blue-green deck. Like, it just, or blue-red deck rather. Like, it just kind of feels so meh.
Yeah.
You know, like it just doesn't feel powerful enough anymore.
In the ether, you'd like to think, let's craft a best case scenario for red blue deck. Then you've got all these sweet value cards. You've got Prophetic Bolt. You've got Electrolyze. You've got Fire Ice. You've got maybe even that Niv Mizzet in your deck. Maybe even a Wildfire.
Is a charm.
Is a charm. These are all excellent cards. You've got the counter spells of blue. You've got the burn spells of red. You've got very few creatures for your opponent to use their removal on. You know, again, a deck like this is a deck where Earthquake, Slagstorm, Capsize are really key. Now, we've mentioned a lot of great cards that can all go in the same deck together and win. Why does it never happen is kind of my question. We play plenty of Magic.
Because blue-red is never the best option if you have a bunch of good blue control cards or a bunch of red burn. Like, jamming those two things together is never the best way to go about it.
Yeah, it just doesn't make sense because
Like,
red is trying to exhaust all its cards
Right.
very quickly, and blue is trying to do the exact opposite of that.
There's too much tension.
Yeah.
Like, if you have all the blue counterspells, you're much better served playing with white or black.
Yeah.
If you have all the red burn, you're better off playing with either more red, like the little guys, or playing like
Or
with
the
black
other,
or
or
white.
the other three colors that have creatures.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. Like, the fact that red wants guys to support its burn spells, and blue isn't giving it to them. And blue wants either efficient win conditions or ways to draw the game out longer, and red's not doing that. So, it's too conflicted as a color combination to work in its current setup. I mean, I'm sure that there is a way, if you were to go super deep on it, to build a cube setup where blue-red is a totally viable deck, but it would require not only playing a bunch of cards specifically for blue-red, but nerfing the other colors
Right.
down to a level where it's on a similar power
Which we're
level.
not going to do. I mean, if anything, I think this conversation has really made me want to probe deeper into what we could do for red-blue to make it something. You know, talking about the Wildfire decks we talked about in the past, that's why Fire Diamond is in the cube. Maybe it's going as far as to add, is it Key Rune? Who knows?
Izakirun is in.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, not Is it Key Rune, is it
Charm?
Signet.
Or
Signet? There we go.
Signet? That one?
I'm so far removed from them.
We've talked about this though. Signets. Anybody else is going to steal the signet just because.
I know, and that's why they're not there.
Yeah.
But I think it's something to delve into further into the future, maybe during an update, maybe during a mid-season lull.
Yeah.
But red-blue, let's say you have to draft it. Let's say you get Time Walk and Chandra the Firebrand, and you're just like, I'm doing it. Mana fixing, I'm gonna give it a pretty high marker. I'm gonna give it an 8 out of 10.
Because the best cards in both blue and red are heavily blue and heavily red.
And every time I've drafted a red-blue deck, as soon as I see Cascade Bluffs, I kind of stop looking at the rest of the pack.
Yeah, like, you want to be able to cast Lightning Bolt on, like, their turn 1 or 2 play, and also cast Cryptic Command as early as possible, so, like, you have to have all the mana fixing you can.
You might even win the game with Form of the Dragon.
Oh my.
That is a thing that could theoretically happen.
Ugh.
Cryptic Command...
That card is in the queue.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is a
Just
thing.
last week, someone finally Academy record for it.
Oh my god.
Living the dream.
That guy, in his deck, also had Stormbind, Sylvan Library, I think like Fate's Fetters.
Yeah.
He had some good ones.
He's going deep.
He has gone deep on the Rector plane.
Yeah.
That was the same guy I lost to when I was a 10, and he had 4 cards in his hand, his Rector died. And I was like, oh, it's okay. I can, like, live long enough through
Just table
Form of the
slam.
Dragon. And he's like, oh, okay, well, I'll just get Stormbind instead.
Right.
You're dead. I'm like, oh, damn it. Okay, so mana fixing is pretty high. We're not aggressively advocating going into Izzet. But let's say you got a few Izzet cards. What are we evaluating higher? What changes in our pick order? What cards do we really want to put in our red-blue deck?
Value burn spells, like ones that say draw a card on them.
Prophetic Bolt, Electrolyze.
Yeah.
And you're going to get those. let's not lie here. Stagger Shot goes up in pick order to me.
Same reason.
Compulsive Research goes up a lot in value for me. There's going to be a lot of one-for-one trades, and you're just going to need your big key cards to stick.
I also really like a card like Burst Lightning. It's like being modular because there's so many turns where you're sitting on counterspell mana and you're just not doing anything. So like having something to do at the end of your opponent's turn when they don't have a spell, they don't play anything you want to counter. Like stuff like Jace's Ingenuity is sweet. Stuff like Thirst for Knowledge, obviously, but like even stuff like the instant speed, bigger burn spells are better.
Yeah.
Just because like you're just like drawing a card, playing land, saying go so much that you need something to do on the end of turn when your opponent doesn't have anything. So you're not wasting that time.
Out of red-green ramp, this is the second most likely color combination to kick Urza's Rage.
Yeah, because the game's just going to go long.
I've done that with Izzet before, definitely.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good point, Eck. You really, that's an excellent point, actually, that cards like Flame Javelin, Jace's Ingenuity are great here. Those bigger spells that the aggressive red players are going to pass on, the blue players might need to take other counter spells or even threats on, you're going to have access to and get all the most value out of. Yeah. It almost is making a case to add Thought Flare to the cube.
Let's not go crazy.
Oh man! and now the Grixis deck that has some Reanimator components can draft it and use it and find out what their Gristle Brain in.
Let's not go crazy.
Or it's huge with the Living Death deck.
Alright, anyway. So
we bemoan you, Izzet. We love you. We really hope that you could be more archetypes in Cube. But you are probably, if we had to rank the guilds on 1 to 10 of the 2 color combinations I would want to draft in Cube, Izzet's probably at the bottom.
Nope.
Second
to bottom. It is 9 out of 10.
Are we getting to the worst?
Jeez, guys, you is hating.
Welcome to 10 out of 10.
You really? I would draft Orzhov and have drafted Orzhov many more times than I would draft Izzet.
And you've probably lost way more often with it.
Only because I've drafted it more times. Only because I've drafted it more times.
Orzhov is so bad. I even drafted it today. I sat down and I ended up drafting it, and I knew in my head, I was like, what are you doing? Like, my brain was like, why are you taking these white cards and these black cards? What are you doing? Like, you know this isn't going to work. I'm like, no, it'll work this time. It'll be great. Like,
So you had Skull Clamp, Lingering Souls, Obsidat.
I had Skull Clamp, Lingering Souls, Braids, Obsidat, Geist-Honored Monk,
Smokestack,
Braid, you have Braid, Smokestacks, Vindicate,
Mortify. Still got horribly wrecked. Went 1-2. Like, didn't even put up a fight in the 2 matches I lost. Like, it was embarrassing.
Okay. But you really should have been 0-3. If
your
opponent knew how to cast their Elish Norn, you would have been 0-3.
That's
you.
No one knew it was you until you just said something.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to come out and defend the Orzhov here. I think that they are a better deck and lend themselves to a better color combination in Guild than Izzet in the cube right now. And I think that Orzhov's biggest problem is its mana.
Yeah.
And the spells that correlate to it.
That is the number one issue with Orzhov, is the fact that all of its spells are triple and, million colored mana, and you literally cannot get enough fixing in cube to make it work.
I mean, if you're one of those people out there that's starting to play more Magic, maybe starting to just cube more, one of the early lessons you will learn in card evaluation, and why you wonder, like, why do the cube drafters always take the lands so high? Like, what's so important about the lands? Try to draft black-white and try to have a successful winning deck.
There's 17 basics in it.
Yeah.
Or you'll learn real fast. It's like, oh man,
that was
like, I'd love to have that ultimate price in my deck, but I really need that. That's too obvious.
The way I look at Orzhov, and one of its biggest problems is typical Orzhov decks are quintessentially fair. If that makes any sense, like, they're the most even fair decks that you can draft in cube, and drafting a fair deck in cube is a recipe for disaster. Because you're just gonna get blown out by people doing crazy shit, and you're like, oh, I'm playing like 1-for-1 removal, and like here's a discard spell. Oh, I've got a guy. Like,
as much as I love your impression of a Magic player, I don't think it's all as bad as that, but I do think that's a common trap. And I think that's what we need to address about Orzhov, is that you're talking about the 2-color combination with the best removal suite. If you need to answer a creature, we've got you covered. Black-white, the church of deals.
right.
We've got you covered. I mean, you've got, again...
It's got sweet 1-for-1 removal. Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
like,
tell
that's
exactly.
like, why are you thrilled about that?
Tell me what a good black-white deck looks like.
So a good black-white deck is a control deck.
Uh-huh.
A good white-black deck is going to have spot removal
I'm doing it wrong.
of the
Yeah,
yes.
okay.
A good white-black deck, and this, we live in a day now...
It has the Abyss and Moat in it, also.
Yeah.
And also Mox Pearl and Mox Jet.
And Black Rose.
Like-
and
Well,
And
seriously.
Yumazawa's GTA.
Because you have to find a way to be unfair in
Stoneforge.
Cube. Like, one of the things...
Moat Abyss is unfair in Cube.
like, that...
Mind Twist is unfair in Cube.
right. You have to have those
Gideon
cards.
Jura.
Vindicate is not unfair. Vindicate is, like, perfectly fair. 3-mana sorcery for one of their cards. Like,
Alright.
you need to be able to go... It's like the go big or go home thing. Not necessarily like you need super expensive spells, but you need things that are really, really impactful on the game. Either, getting you up a bunch of cards or putting a huge, hard to deal with threat or whatever. And like Black-White is so all about like 1-for-1ing your opponent and like slowly grinding out like these little advantages, and people just drop crazy haymakers all over you, and if you can't deal with them, you're screwed.
Yeah, what I'm hearing is that black-white is trying to bore you to death, basically. It's like the
Oh,
goal.
it is.
Yeah.
A good black-white deck makes your opponent... I mean, this is Nathan... You're talking about Nathan in our playgroup's favorite deck. It's black-white Abyss. Abyss mode is really what he's going for, but black-white Abyss. If he has black-white Abyss deck, the rounds are going to go to time. He's going to win the match 1-1, or 1-0, sorry. And no one will have fun except him, as he laughs. His opponent can't keep anything on the board.
So in chat, there's been brought up that really disruption-heavy aggro decks in Orzhov are possible,
It's difficult, though.
because it goes back to the mana. You've got all
Right.
these.
You can't have Usamaro and
Himnotoric.
Carnophage
And Himnotoric.
in the same opener and be like, this is going to work.
Or even like
just
even like Isamaru into like Hypnotic Spectre or some of the black 3-drops,
Right,
like
and
Vampire Nighthawk.
And we've even
Yeah. And like
kind of cleaned this up a lot, because it used to be way worse when there was Black Knight, White Knight.
Right.
Yeah.
When like all the white 2-drops were double white. 8.5 Tails, Sarah Avenger, like.
And even though we kind of like universally agree that the black ones are worse, like the white ones have more effective abilities, there was too much of a time where it was double black creatures, double white creatures, and they never came together. But going back to what you said, a good black-white deck is a control deck. A good white-black deck is going to have the best spot removal, the best discard, and a lot of great answers, and it needs to have access to cards like Ancient Craving, Phyrexian Arena, and then like fringe things would be like Scroll Rack and like Undead Gladiator.
So people are talking about wraths in the chat. Are these the kinds of things you want in that then?
Wraths
Yeah.
are good, and again,
You have to
want
get ahead somehow.
You don't want to have to just play the 1-for-1 game. Now, when we talk about red blue is almost all 1-for-1s. Without Slagstorm Earthquake, it's not like blue is like my 1 card gets your 3 cards.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, there's control magic, but that is more situational than like this is clearly just going to solve a problem for one of my cards and take out multiple of your cards. Now that's where a card like Ancient Craving, to me, that card is an Orzhov card so often. Maybe it's a Golgari card a lot of the times. Phyrexian Arena, like that's a card where it's like, oh sweet, I want to draft a sweet white control deck where I can play Moat, Wrath of God, Fate's Fetters, Gideon Jura, Baneslayer Angel, Akroma Angel of Wrath, and also play these sweet black cards. Like there's few things that are sweeter, and this happens sadly not often enough, where you get to go Abyss into Akroma Angel of Wrath.
Yeah, I mean, like... But again, like, the majority of the cards that you're going to end up with in that deck are just very kind of even-handed, like, not impressive.
And to me, I think that a lot of it comes from people... It's real easy. It's too easy to draft a bad black-white deck, and that leaves people with a sour taste in their mouth, being like, this color combination's terrible. I drafted Sudden Death, Terror, Doomblade, Swords of Plowshares, Baneslayer Angel, Kakusho, and I lost. Well, okay, cool. You have some great one-offs.
Yeah.
But like that, a game does not win. Like, how do you deal with Deranged Hermit?
How do you deal with like someone casting like a draw spell? Like, God forbid anyone ancestral recalls against you, and you just like instantly lose the game.
And that's where the discard is really key, and that's where, in the more recent updates, Black has been kind of like, okay, do we add more land destruction or do we add more discard? And we like at one point actually sat down and like, okay, Bog Down or Icequake.
Yeah,
we landed on
Icequake.
Nice. We ended on Icequake.
You have some weird conversations in developing.
Yeah, apparently.
Sounds like it.
I think Bog Down could find its way into Cube one day.
Sweet card.
I mean, we just recently had Raven's Crime.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I liked it.
Phyrexian Arena into Raven's Crime.
Life from the Lamb.
Life from the Lamb.
Yeah.
So I just
Stronghold Rats has been excellent.
Yeah,
By the
I would
way,
say
that is a
has been-
side note. I don't
yeah.
think that's so much of an Orzhov
that card
card.
is super underrated.
Oh my god.
Nobody holds equipment better.
Oh, I mean, A, it's huge in the Reanimator deck. B, it's sweet in the NBA deck. And
If
then
you ever get to take advantage of the fact that you're discarding stuff, it's just gravy.
Oh yeah. Makes
Like,
me
you
want
ever
to put
discard
that
like a blood gas or
into
something?
Cube. Yeah.
Like, oh,
This should just
God.
tell you how bad Orzhov is that we've gotten completely off.
That was one comment from the chat.
I know, but it's so much more exciting than Orzhov.
I like Orzhov.
I like Orzhov too. It's just like you kind of have to face facts.
We can morph. See, here's the thing. We can morph Cube. If the land destruction package does not work out in the long run, there's plenty of opportunity to put in Night's Whispers, Sign in Bloods, more of these cards.
Yeah.
And White is the perfect complement to that. There was a point in time where Pulse of the Fields was good in Cube and better in Black-White.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's true.
yeah. With Necro.
Yeah.
Oh,
Whoa!
Yeah.
I want it now!
Again, a thing that requires like 40,000 different ways to make white and black mana.
So,
triple black.
Triple black into
white.
double white spells.
Oh yeah, no big deal.
Yeah.
This is a deck where Stoneforge Mystic would be probably
Well, yeah, just
mostly one of the best cards.
Get Batterskull.
So far is extremely good here because, again, you're looking for ways to get card advantage.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
equipment...
early.
Equipment is huge in card advantage. Batterskull is this unstoppable threat. Doesn't matter your color
This is
combination.
also a great place for land tax.
Yeah.
Land tax scroll rack. This is the best color combination for land tax scroll rack.
I mean, just land tax in general because it like kind of draws you cards.
Yeah.
And like anything that even kind of draws you cards in black white just shoots up.
And I think that, it's important to point out, we're making these cases because these colors are so powerful together. We just need to make a way to make it happen. To me, that's where Izzet doesn't have that right now. But Orzhov does have that.
I think maybe I'm just getting stuck up on the mana base issue and how often you just run into that being a showstopper.
Yeah.
At least for me, anyway.
And in order to draft an Orzhov control deck effectively in Cube, you have to be aware of it. And that's why it's so important for us to say,
Like 1 to 10.
on the metric scale, this is your 10 out of 10.
Yeah, I would
This
say
is where
for
I
sure.
see a March
Well-
Flats. A Fetid Heath is like your dream card.
Fetid Heath is the first pick.
If I go Swords of Plowshares, Demonic Tutor,
Fetid Heath.
somehow Hypnotic Spectre, pick 3, and I like as soon as I see a Fetid Heath, nothing's stopping me from taking it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But mana fixing is absolutely huge here. I mean, I will often joke with people. They show me a deck, and I, thumb through, and the first 5 cards I see only black and white. It's like, oh, I'm expecting to see the Godless Shrine, the Marsh Flat, the Scrubland,
That's just like, uh-oh.
or your deck is 2-1 at best.
Yeah.
In best case scenario, if you draw perfectly, and that's very much the case. And you have to be aware of it when drafting. So, for people out there, I don't really even feel this is like just a my cube thing. Anyone that drafts black white, look at your own results at home with whatever cube you draft with.
The mana
Be
is
very aware of these
If
things
there were,
when evaluating and taking.
if we
cards.
just put 4 Fetid Heaths in cube, then black white would be sweet.
maybe
If
Like, you
could
just
make
break
sure
this
you-
I would
is a
actually
rule.
draft black white aggro.
more often. Yeah, more often.
I would probably just want them to be scrublands.
But
at
again,
that
you're
point,
still
though.
playing Silverblade Paladin and Hypnotic Spectre in the same deck if you're the aggro guy. You're not always going to draw it, and you're just going to be screwed.
That's why it's not really a deck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I would say that it's not a deck. So to that end, cards that I would pick and then push me into Orzhov. If I went Gideon Jura into Phyrexian Arena,
The Abyss.
the Abyss and then Moat, the Abyss and then a White Planeswalker of any type.
Enlightened Tutor's sick in this color combination.
Oh yeah, Light Tutor is 6.
There's also
But we-
Oblivion Ring.
We just put back Debtor's Knell into the cube as well.
Yeah.
Partly for the Academy Rector, but back in the day when cube was slower and more about the just landing haymakers all the time.
Debtor's Knell was the 6.
Debtor's Knell was like the go-to Orzhov finisher. It's like, we killed everything, now we're gonna get it all back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you sat around and you did that.
Yeah.
Obzidon.
I'll say that's amazing.
Yeah. But
I'll
that
say
guy's
it's
like
sweet. I have him today also.
the prototype.
Never
Again, I just
skipped
look at him like double black, double white, and 1.
Yeah.
Man.
He was definitely like...
Which is so great, because it means that you're the only guy who's going to
Yeah,
get it.
totally.
Like, if you see
You can
Marsh
ship it,
Flats
and
and
it'll come
Amsterdam
back.
in the same pack,
Yeah.
and it's pack 3, and you're black-white, you're like, pump the fist all day. I'm going to take this Marsh Flats, and I'm going to see you with 7 people.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Everyone, high fives Ghost Dad, goes right into your pool,
Yeah.
and they all know they're going to lose to it.
Yeah, like, that card is super, super sick.
It's one of those bonus ways you can, like, win when your own mode is in play, and you haven't, like, actively found a way out from underneath the mode.
Yeah, that's true.
Sounds like fun magic.
Right. Black-white is not fun magic.
You'd be the only one in the room that likes moat magic. You boarded it in
Okay,
against me
I
today.
like Moat in Boros when I'm like casting Baneslayer Angel or
What if you just like? What if you? It's like ensnaring bridge for you.
yeah, that
You get your opponent down to like 11 off of your Goblin Guides or your whatever creatures. Then you lay the moat, shields up, and then you're just like, okay, stagger shock you, stagger shock. Okay.
Right.
Nothing. Lightning bolt you. Okay, nothing.
I wish we talked about Moat in Boros because it's really awesome there. And not in the slow deck, but yeah.
You get the idea.
All right.
Mode is good.
I feel like we've given Orzhov more than it's
That's
fair
our
to.
10 out of 10, which is really important to point out. If you're trying to evaluate mana for 2-color decks in Cube, black and white is the most important.
Like, it's so important that if I'm in black-white, any land that could theoretically produce black and white goes up. Like, it's not just
Okay.
Vivid Land, or it's not just, like, Marsh Flats and stuff like that. It's also, like, Arcane Sanctum. Like, even if I'm not blue, just because it has white and black on it.
Right,
Like, stuff like that.
Yeah, a black-white man land would be so good.
Yeah.
It'll happen.
I hope so.
Black White Mainland.
Yeah.
Just like Stillmoon Cavalier as a mainland or something.
Could we just run that action right now? What would a black-white man land be?
It would probably be like this stupid Orzhov Signet.
Oh my
where
god!
it's
No,
like a-
it wouldn't deck because it would be good.
I think
Yeah.
Lifelink is their thing, right?
yeah, but like being 1/4 is pretty goddamn
Yeah, that-
miserable.
I mean,
Like-
if the key runes are an indication of what manlands would look like today,
Uh,
or if we try to correlate allied manlands to allied
it could
key
have
runes,
it could have First Strike. First Strike is a Black White thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's gotta have lifelink. I mean, it's probably. I mean, in a best case scenario, it's probably like lifelink Death Touch. So it's probably a better blocker than it is an attacker.
Like Vampire Nighthawk, like the dude. Like Vampire Nighthawk the mainland. or something.
Vampire Nighthawk the manland would be ridiculous.
First Strike Death Touch, the ultimate defender.
Yeah.
Not in black white. Not
Actually,
in black
would
white.
flying be so far off the mark?
Flying would not be off the mark.
I mean,
Just
I feel
flying
like that'd be
lifelink.
really
Flying
sweet.
Flying
Yeah.
lifelink would be boss.
Yeah.
Fire Nighthawk, yeah.
Alright. Moving on. Sorry, Orzhov, but...
I don't. You gave it way more shit than you gave the Is It.
Now we come to a much sweeter color combo.
TSG's time.
Simic is one of my favorite. I think Simic probably has 2 clear decks.
It's so tricksy.
It is the trixiest of all the
I
2-color
love
combo.
it.
As much as we love Azorius and we love all of the momentary blink style effects,
I'm never sad playing green-blue.
Simic is pretty boss. I
Yeah.
love Simic.
Simic is like that sweet spot of you get to play interactive magic because you have counter spells or like combat tricks,
And creatures.
but you also get like a bunch of sweet efficient guys and like a bunch of sweet value dudes. Like hitting with like Trigon Predator is like the best feeling.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Stuff
Laying
like
Trigon
that.
Predator on turn 2 off of a Noble Hierarch,
Well,
and then
yeah.
turn 3 laying Edric.
or you know, yeah, anything like that just like is so satisfying.
But
and-
your opponent is never having fun.
Yeah.
Like
Well, no.
Mystic Snake, for example, is just like
Mystic Snake, Mana War,
The
attack
ultimate
in,
unfun.
ninja back your Mystic Snake.
draw
Ooh.
2 cards because you have Edric in play.
Yeah.
Ugh.
And now we even got Simic Charm, which there was a lot of debate on among Cube activists and forums about whether or not Simic Charm should be included in Cube.
It's nutty.
It's very good.
What you have is a rich nut flavor, Nick.
Yeah, it has a very.
It's the way
rich
you
nut
said that was
flavor.
very confusing. It's very nutty.
Yeah, like
I think I used all 3 modes today. in
that's
my-
very common. I think I've had it
Yeah.
and used all 3 modes.
Well, there you
Like,
go.
but I mean, like that's very much like the kind of like flexibility that you get in green blue.
Yeah.
Like another example is like Void Slime. Like Void Slime is always sweet because there's always some awesome thing that you're preventing with it. Like at worst it's cancel, and then like sometimes you also get to like stop some horrible trigger.
Yeah, of all of the conversations we've had in the long history of Cube, stifle or no stifle, trick bind or no trick bind, bind or no bind.
I've always said bind because it draws a card.
Right, but it also does the least.
Only counters activated abilities?
Yeah.
Once. And activated ability once.
For cheap mana.
That's not bad.
It's not bad.
It draws a card.
Stifle is not bad. Trick Bind is not bad.
No.
Congratulations, you have named cards that are not bad.
Right.
Stifle.
But like Void Slime, like because it can counter spells.
Right.
Nothing is more satisfying than activate Mindslaver targeting you, Void Slime.
Can Void... I don't know. Can Void Slime hit triggered abilities too?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
wow.
triggered,
Activated
activated,
triggered
yeah.
abilities or
Okay,
spells.
yeah, that
Oh my.
card's sweet.
It is the one of that kind of awkward counterspell cycle that we've kept.
Yeah.
Like, slowly but surely absorb,
Absorb,
undermine. They've all
Quickly
left.
Quickly suffocating blast left.
Oh my
Suffocating
God.
Blast is so bad.
The worst.
Just fucking good.
What, did you play a good spell?
Oh, you don't have a
there's
guy.
no creature on the battlefield? Yeah, that resolves. Am I dead? Yeah, that's cool. You want to play again? No, I don't.
Alright.
We're good.
Void Slime, though, it is. And all the green-blue, the gold cards in Cube are so sweet. They are so sweet. We don't get to play Coiling Oracle.
Or Prime Speaker Zagana.
Or Prime Seeker Zagana.
Really?
There's a
No
bunch of
Prime
cards
Seeker.
we don't get to play.
Wow.
We talked about it, but like Blue Green is already so like it's interesting looking like one day we'll have to talk about like how deep the roster is for each like gold section, and Blue Green's is like fucking.
Yeah, but I want
gigantic.
to tooth and nail into that guy and something else.
Oh,
That is-
Cynic
Do you
Sky
mean
Swallower is so
anything
sweet.
else?
Yeah.
Yeah, for example, in my Cube League deck for today, which I managed a 3-0 for the first time in a while, I had the Eureka deck, but I was also able to protect it with a few blue cards, and at one point I pitched my Cynic Sky Swallower to Force Will.
Yeah,
Oh.
see that's sweet.
Big game.
Yeah.
So like Blue Green really, I think it benefit like a lot of it wants the cheaper green guys. I feel like the 3-ish mana, like the 3 mana spot for green is sweet in green.
Well,
blue.
we'll start with the aggressive deck because we beat around the bush about what we're talking about. The blue-green kind of tricksy tempo creature deck is a super sweet one. When we talk about blue's creatures in Cube in general, they're clones, they're dragon-type creatures, and they're sweet trick creatures. You know, Aether Adept, Mana War, Vendilion Click,
Pestermite.
Pestermite. These are all just like Simic love bugs. And pretty much any of the green creatures, like talk about the best place for Llanowar Elves to do something other than like be able to equip Sword effectively, it's in the home of blue-green. Because you can turn 2 off any of those sweet, Cyrandib type creatures, not so much better guys.
Green Blue has some of the best turn 3 plays, 3 mana plays rather, in the entire key.
Even if it's just like Pestermite your land.
Does that make the mana dorks like at their best or close to their best here?
Oh yeah.
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 Oh.
And,
And,
like-
and that's what makes a card like Edric so huge.
Yeah.
Like you already have the evasion guys to get value off of, and then you have that scenario where it's just like even was it you or somebody? One of my opponents today was like, I just had Werebear, Elves of Deep Shadow,
Plus,
a
plus
blue
like
creature, and it was just like, alright, attack.
plus like the way this deck tends to go for me is like very heavy in like the 3-drop area. So like the mana guys are great for like when you want to have a 3-drop with counterspell backup, like being able to get to like 5 or 6 mana faster, so you can like play Orin Viper Mana Leak or whatever.
Right.
Mhm.
Like being able to either defend your guys or stop what they're doing. Like
Oh,
at
they're
the same time.
they're so key there, and it's so like humorously transparent on turn 5 or 6 when you're like want to cast a 2 to 4 drop creature, but leave your lands untapped for counter magic. You're just like strangely tapping all of your mana
Yeah.
guys to play a threat, leaving your lands up. Like okay, go.
Yeah, like it telegraphs pretty hard, but it's still very good. Like Blue Green has just endless. Like Blue Green is not the fastest aggro deck, and it certainly doesn't like it's not playing 2 power guys
It
on
doesn't
turn
need to
1.
be the fastest. It's
No,
so tricksy.
but it's got the best value and the most flexibility. I think like it can play like the same 40 cards can play aggro against control and control against aggro,
Right.
and that's a real rarity in Cube.
Right.
Like because the cards are so flexible and so versatile, you can go both directions with the same cards, which not a lot of decks can do.
Right.
Number 1 deck for Aether Vial. Number 1 deck for Standstill.
Yeah,
Probably number 1 deck for like Mutavault Mishra's Factory to that end.
yeah, that's certainly true.
I mean, one of the rotisserie drafts that we did like a strange round robin in, I won the whole thing with the Mutavault, like the Aether Vial, Standstill, Fish style deck with just like Daze, Mana Leak, Memory Lapse, Pestermite, Vendilion Click, those cards.
Remand.
Yeah, some Mox Monkeys out of green for all the artifacts, and that deck was amazing.
Yeah, like this is also a sweet deck. This is a great place for equipment, just because your guys are typically like gray ogre-y. Gray ogre-ish.
Well, a lot of them do things when they enter the battlefield.
Right, but once they're
then
there-
they're gray ogres.
It's
Right,
like critical mass of coming to the
But
battlefield.
Trigon Predator is sweet if it's uncontested, but it like doesn't play great D because it's only a 2/3, and like if they have a flyer, like it gets outclassed in the air very quickly. So like equipment is like very relevant, and like similarly, like I mean, not to say that like it's bad anywhere, but this is like the #1 helm for Jete because green blue has like no removal.
Right, you're not killing anything.
So, like,
you're only
any-
tickling it and making it go away
But
for a little while.
any way that you have to like permanently deal with threats is super, super important. So like Jete, obviously, I mean Jete is insane everywhere, but it's especially good here. Even cards like Brittle Effigy, like Duplicant, you know.
Duplicate's a little much.
But I
Brittle
mean-
Effigy I get behind because it fits in. You can cast it, leave counter
Yeah.
magic up,
But
use it in a turn to get rid of a threat.
I'm just saying, like green blue is so there's just nothing that kills guys.
Crystal Shard is.
Yeah, it's one of the top 5 Crystal Shard decks. Maybe top 3.
I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Top 3. Alright, I'll be generous. Mana fixing on a scale of 1 to 10 on our green-blue aggressive Simic decks.
I would go pretty high, just because you want turn 1 Landmore Elves, but still have double blue pretty early.
Now, and when we move on to the next section, this isn't a deck where I'm taking, well, maybe Forbid. Maybe Forbid's the only double blue counterspell. But I'm not taking Dismiss. I'm not taking Counterspell. I'm probably taking Force of Will still. I'm always taking Force of Will. But I'm looking more for, like, Spell Pierce, Daze, Force Spike, Mana Leak, Memory Lapse.
Sure, but you're gonna like play Mana Drain.
But it's also got some of the best gold cards, and they're all relatively early plays too. So you need to be able to get.
Or they're double
your-
blue. Like
your
Mystic
green.
Six double blue,
Right.
Void Sludge double blue.
So if we had to give a numeric value to this,
Sounds like a 7.
Yeah, I'd say 7.
7.5.
Yeah.
Okay.
Reaching 8.
It's pretty important. Flooded Grove is very good here.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that
I
card
had
does
Flood
seem
Grove
really
tonight.
good.
That was huge.
Like, yeah. Being able to...
To go from Raphellos to Mystic Snake.
Well, and... Yeah, and also, like, being able to, you know, utilize some of the more power blue cards that are double and or occasionally triple
You can just
blue.
end up getting Mana Drain or Cryptic Command, and you do want to play them.
Yeah.
But you don't want to have to sacrifice being able to apply early pressure to do so.
Right.
Right.
Let's talk about the other deck that Blue Green has.
And lastly,
I'm curious.
cards that are indicative of the blue-green aggressive deck. We mentioned them all by name.
Noble Hierarch.
But just to recap,
Noble Hierarch.
Yeah.
Trigon Predator.
Edric is huge.
Edric is huge. I like Orin Viper in this deck.
Yeah, it's a little unnecessarily greedy. I mean, the fact that it does kind of trade with anything because we can't
But
kill
like
stuff
that
is key.
style of guy, I really like in this deck. This is also a great spot for Gilded Drake.
This is like Pestermite's deck.
Gilded Drake is
Yeah.
cool here.
Gilded Drake is good because you have so much bounce, like incidental bounce.
And we can't kill anything.
Right, and we can't kill anything.
So if your opponent lays Dragon, you're like, okay, well, I'll take it.
Clones.
Clones are
Clones
pretty...
are okay. The most of them, the ones that cost 4 mana, it's not really one of them.
Like Phantasmal Image is sweet, but Clone's kind of bad.
And
It's
even
slow.
like Phantasmal Image is a little more situational because the effects that we're getting on our cheap guys are pretty redundant. Mana War, Utabi Orangutan, and we can't make more Edrics.
Right.
And I don't really want to make more Llanowar Elves.
No,
No.
you do not. That's true.
Ninja the
sometimes.
Deep Hours is also...
That die when
Ninja, this is the best Ninja the Deep Hours deck.
Yeah.
Yes.
for sure.
Because it has like so many like...
And you get value out of the guy you return too.
Exactly.
On top of that.
But I mean, like, even if you just return like Landmore Elves, like, that's still fine.
Yeah, sure.
So then, blue-green is one of the color combinations that has the ramp decks. If you think about Mirrored and Block Constructed, for the 3 of you here live and the 6 of you that listen later, that remember blue-green Tooth and Nail and Mirrored and Block Constructed.
Fuck that deck.
Whoa, Eck, it's a family show.
That I don't care.
Please do not.
That's how much I despise that deck.
Next year's gonna be waving your penis at the webcam. We don't need this. Yeah. Now, blue-green Tooth and Nail decks, they play counter spells, and then eventually they play ramp spells in between when they're playing counter spells, and then they play things like Tooth and Nail. And so here, you know, we've at this point we've touched on all the green X decks that are mostly ramp decks. Green white, green red, not so much green black. Definitely being green blue, and green blue does play very differently than green white or green red. Again, with blue green, you're not killing a damn thing. So you better make sure the things you're putting out on the table are the best damn things you can.
One of the problems I have with like the green blue non like creature aggressive decks is that there's this problem I always run into where all of the green, or I should say the vast majority of green's ramping is sorcery speed. So I have to either play ramp or hold up counter magic.
Right.
And it's always this like awkward shell game of like, when do I tap out? When do I not tap out? Because like, especially because you have no removal. Like, if you make the wrong choice, like, it very often will like lose you the game on the spot.
Yes, the blue-green ramp deck is not for the novices. It's not where you can be like, oh, I cast Cultivate this turn, and then my opponent laid his Thron the last troll. Guess I can't do anything. And it's okay, I have Wrath of God. Here you need Phantasmal Image or Phyrexian Metamorph.
Yeah.
But the thing about the blue-green ramp decks is you're gonna have. I mean, that's pretty much what I drafted tonight. So it's a little easier to talk about this deck. But cards like Fact or Fiction, Compulsive Research, again, what seems like the bread and the butter of all these blue decks are really key here. To be able to get the card advantage back, play those ramp spells, try to play the counter magic early, and then, again, make sure you're putting the best creature, the best threat, the best permanent into play. If it's Woodfall Primus to get rid of their Planeswalker, if it's Terraston to get rid of their lands, or get rid of your lands to make more power, if it's Palaka Worm to get back all the life you lost while you were doing these things, and then have this giant trampler. All of these things are very key to making it a good green-blue ramp deck. And the counter magic is a huge key there because you're not being able to kill anything. But blue gives you that card advantage and that card draw. That's where having that Force of Will in my deck tonight was huge. Being able to have, my only counter spells were Force of Will, Condescend, Power Sink. And then I also had Simic Charm, Edric, and Simic Sky Swallower. I think that was all the blue in my... Oh, and Mystical Tutor.
Force of Will, what you mentioned.
Yeah, Mystical Tutor, so I could get the Tooth and Nail that was in my deck, and the Eureka, which was also very key.
I don't want to talk about it.
Lewis doesn't want to talk about it because we met in the finals. So that said, those are the components I want. That's what makes blue-green ramp different from a different flavor of the green ramp decks. Again, with the white and the red, you're killing stuff. With the blue and the green, you gotta make sure that you're putting the best threats into play. That's where the Tooth and Nail is most important. That's where your threats, the type of threats, your threat density is very important.
So
Wall of Roots is also really, really good here.
I completely agreed.
So, you keep talking about how blue-green can't kill anything. How good is Beast Within then?
Oh, it's huge.
Yeah.
Huge.
The thing I always worry about with it is, like, the 3/3 is kind of annoying for the blue-green when you all got all these little dorks on the table. Like,
but also it's a token, and, like, you're going to have them, like, incidental bounce, probably.
Like
repeal.
Simic Charm or... Oh,
Yeah,
yeah, that's a good one. Yeah.
Like, I'm fine, like, Beast Within and repealing something, like, if I have to. And, like, a 3/3 is not nearly as terrifying, potentially, as, Hero of Bladehold or some other...
You're always taking Karn as well.
Yeah, Karn, obviously.
Karn isn't defining an archetype. Karn isn't like, I'm blue-green, now I'll take Karn.
Yes.
Or vice versa.
Right.
Yes, but having a Karn makes life a lot easier for the blue-green Tooth and Nail
certainly
player.
true.
So how highly would you take Beast Within then in this deck? Just
Very high. But when you say how highly would I take it, that would mean that I would have to pretty much already be planted in the deck.
yeah.
Like, at that point, I'm, like, first picking it out of pack 2.
It's a hard deck.
Yeah, okay.
I think it's a hard... Not necessarily a hard deck to draft, so to speak, but it's a hard deck to find yourself playing.
Or play effectively, like you mentioned already earlier. It's like, as that player, too many times you feel like the turn you go to cast Cultivate and not leave mana up to do everything you can do in your hand, that's the turn.
Yeah.
They lay a Johnny Vengeance. They lay Elspeth. They lay Gideon. They land Necro. Necro, very good against that deck.
Yeah. So, like, I just think that, like, it's a weird... It's not a common deck I find myself falling into, I think is what I'm trying to say.
I mean, it's because it's dangerous because you're not necessarily being able to kill anything. Like, today, I had to Simic Charm a hard cast Gristlebrand in order to not get blown out. I mean, it was effectively Time Walk, which was huge. I had to Simic Charm a Raphaelos on turn 2 from an opponent to try to catch back up to play more Magic. These are things that worked out, but it was important.
Simic Charm is awesome.
Yes.
Some people in this circle would say it is the best charm in Q.
Yeah, I think so.
Would you like to tell us more, Lewis?
Well, okay. I think you mentioned Boros Charm the other day as the best charm in Q. Is that what you
mean, we could stretch it a little bit and say probably Dromar's charm.
Dromar's charm is the best charm.
We're going to only talk about...
But I think you could make
the
an
RTR
argument.
ones.
Okay, alright.
Sorry,
the RTR block
new
ones.
RTR block. charms.
Mm-hmm.
I like Simic Charm because I feel that it has more flexibility than the other charms do. Like, it's good in any of the green-blue decks that you're going to play.
Okay.
The Boros one, I think, is usually much worse in the sort of slower Boros decks than it is in the really aggressive Boros decks.
The faster you are, the better Boros Charm is.
Right.
Even though I can make all my lands indestructible and cast Armageddon.
Yeah, you usually not wait until you got 6 lands to cast Armageddon, though. Like, you're conserving your lands so you can then...
So you're just keeping them in your hand. But wouldn't a Boros Charm in the grip allow you to just
Of
play out
course,
your land?
of course.
It might allow your opponent to kind of just overextend themselves and know that there isn't an Armageddon coming.
But in that Boros deck, you're not going to really want the other 2 modes of the charm all that often, so it just becomes
Right.
my permanents are indestructible, which is not worth the card.
Because you rarely have creatures early in the game to use
Right.
it with. That is defensible. I still think Boros Charm is...
Boros Charm is very good. It's just also... It's surprisingly narrow for a charm.
Yeah.
Like, for a card that has 3 modes, it is very narrow in
And-
terms of where it actually fits.
And a lot of it, I think, part of that is because the double strike ability can be blank a lot of the time. Like, you're talking about, like, throwing Boros Charm at a big guy to just kill your opponent, but most of the time the Boros decks that we're talking about don't have that. That's not what they're doing. They have, like, smaller guys that they're probably not going to want to hit with Boros Charm, and they're just going to deal 4.
Even your Greater Gargadon decks, where Greater Gargadon comes into play after you've wiped the board away, now you can 18 them.
Well, I'm just going to kill them in 2 turns, and that's not going to be worth the card.
I will agree with you.
Yeah.
Anytime Greater Gargadon's getting in there for 9, he's probably getting in there for 9 again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, Simic Charm number 1, RTR Charm.
But let's come. You talked about Boros Charm,
Okay.
but tell us why Simic Charm,
why Simic Charm?
and give us good examples of why.
First, reason number 1, the +3/+3 is another way for you to kill guys. So you're going to, push through your little dudes and have a way to kill something. You're also going to push through your little dudes without having to worry about whether you're going to kill something by bouncing creatures. The tempo hit, just even if it's not like protect your guys or whatever, the tempo hit is really awesome. Being able to bounce one of your guys to reuse Pestermite or Mystic Snake or Venser or whatever later on in the game is really awesome. And also the hexproof, if you ever do land a bigger creature, can be really great too. And like, for example, in your deck, I had Swords of Plowshares and Crib Swap in my it was Boros deck today, wasn't it?
No, you were playing Celestia.
Oh yeah, I was Celestia today, and I got you game 1 because I sworded your guy. But if you had Simic Charm, you could either hexproof it, leave it on the table, or it was like a guy that destroys it on.
It was
Woodfall Primus.
Woodfall Primus.
Yeah. Or you just
I could bounce
you either
it
hexproof it
and
or
then
you
get it back
bounce
to
it,
me.
and there's so much flexibility there to do all the things that it does. All the things blue green wants to do, whereas Boros Charm does not do
It's
all
also
the things.
It's also great on offense and defense.
Yeah.
Like, its offensive mode, it has a good offensive mode, it has a good defensive mode, and it has a
Boros
good...
Charm has a good offensive mode and a good defensive mode.
Like,
Boros doesn't play defense that way.
Boros doesn't play defense.
Except in a deck that doesn't want that effect.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will give you that. I will give you that.
Boros plays defense by burning out dudes, not by returning them to their owner's hands.
When it's all said and done, I don't think its Simic Charm is clearly better, but you've made an excellent argument for why that card is excellent.
Sure. You just think the 4 damage is that powerful.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. That's fine.
And
That's
you can kill
reasonable.
your opponent from 10 with Baneslayer Angel. You can kill your opponent from 12 with... actually, you can kill your opponent from, a mile away with Inferno Titan.
Right.
Oh god.
Sure.
Yeah, Boros Charm on Inferno Titan doesn't really seem all that important. Does that do us for all of our guilds today?
That doesn't.
So we've got about 15 minutes left before we hit the 2-hour mark. I think more important than our 3-color conversation, which we'll probably save for another day, is we should talk about the new Make the Card
Oh, yeah.
from Wizards of the
Yes.
Coast.
Tis exciting.
Yes.
Now, has everyone in the circle voted?
I have.
I have.
I have not yet.
Good. Well, we can influence a vote.
Yes.
Swing it. You can swing it.
Now, there's a lot of talk out there. Land! We all want a land.
Sam Party.
It's good to own land, but that's not my vote this week. I'm going creature, and that's mostly because I've been kicking around a card I really wish I would see for cube. It was again. This is a Patrick Chapin conversation from many months ago. We were talking about if you could make a card just for cube, what does cube need? And it actually led into a lot of great conversations about where things are lacking and balancing those things. So starting in the most abstract, I vote creature. How about over here?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's when I look at things like this, it's especially from a cube perspective. It's like name a color and card type that is the most in desperate need of being better. And for me, the number one thing that is bad in cube across the board are black creatures.
Yeah.
Already getting ahead of yourself.
But
But it is important to point out the color because I think players in general over the last couple of years, but creatures just keep getting better. We don't need a creature. Creatures just keep getting better.
black creatures have not been getting any better.
All right. Well, you've jumped the gun.
Yeah.
But
Bristlebrand, that's what, the best black creature?
In a long time.
Yeah.
And that's
And it's only good in reanimator.
It's like a half enchantment, really.
Yeah.
Lewis, did you vote?
I voted creature.
You also voted creature.
I'm a creature fan.
Lewis is a creature
big
fan.
I mean, also with the way Magic has been in the last couple of years, by voting creature, it gives we have the highest threshold for power level
Yeah.
that we as quote unquote
The
card
community.
designers can get away with.
I don't know. Crucible of Worlds.
Yeah, but that was years ago.
Yeah.
and it was a
I
completely
feel like that
different.
was a mistake.
I think
We
artifact.
have no one to blame but ourselves, Nick.
Artifact and land. I think they would have some hesitance about doing anything really exciting.
Definitely on land.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
for sure.
Forsyth's tweets and conversations in the past few months about why they don't really print legendary lands anymore goes a long way into saying how lands are really kind of taking a back seat. And even in Innistrad, we had pretty much what I would consider to be the best you could expect lands to be for a long time.
Spell lands,
That also have
good.
2 color activations.
Yeah.
Yeah, super narrow but sweet, value lands like that, or even the World Wake Man lands, or
There
we're
is
not
a-
going to see anything that sweet for a while.
Yes, there is a creature that is Sign in Blood with the 4/4.
There is. That's
Yeah,
true.
for 6.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, good God.
So again, my vote is creature, and to go deeper onto it, the card that I came up with initially was something called was it Death Dealer or something? This is this is an R&D name, but it was a double black and 1, 2/1 first strike. When it enters the battlefield, choose 1. Target creature gets -2/-2 until end of turn, or lose 2 life, draw 2 cards.
That's clearly ridiculous.
Oh, we also had to put in that it was a vampire zombie.
Right. For
That way, it melds with everything in black that we want.
Right. I mean, this is the kid in the candy store. What do you put on your Christmas list to Santa Claus?
True. Now, as many people who love Twilight fanfiction have pointed out, you can't actually have a vampire zombie. I don't know. Did you guys know this?
I did not know
Did you know
that.
this? Have you heard about this?
Okay.
Have you heard of that?
I mean,
Apparently, one just supersedes the other.
Why? Why are we talking about this?
I guess vampires have brains, zombies don't.
I don't know. Like if a zombie bit a vampire, what happens?
Well, there's no blood, probably.
A zombie bit a vampire.
Oh.
I really.
Well, I mean, which
Not like a
vampires are
vampire's I need to get at that zombie.
I mean, zombies are supposedly slow, right?
So
All right, back to Magic.
Yeah.
after a little bit of talk there, that's the dream. If I could have a card in my cube tomorrow, that would be the card I would want.
But at the same time, even if you can't get anything that awesome, Black could really use a sweet dude, somewhere in the 2 to 4 mana range. That's not just Dark Hobnot's very good, but it needs just a sweet,
Yeah, again, my vote as
kind of big.
as a cube enthusiast, advocate, all the time cube player. That's what I want. Now, there's a lot of talk out there, and I can get behind this campaign, is to try to make the red super creature. Have you heard about this?
Oh yeah, the 2 mana.
So every other color has this 1 color and 1, 2 power cards, legacy playable, super awesome, and red got left out because Thiago Chan is not a red mage. So you've got your Tarmogoyfs, your Stoneforge Mystics, your Dark Confidants, and your Snapcaster Mages. Where's red's love?
Ash sell it.
So to me, I just don't think there's anything that would make it through the submission process at a red and 1 that would really be awesome. I mean, we could make some cool cards as a community. I think like starting by giving it pro red would be really cool.
From a cube perspective, there's no way that this process will produce a card better than the 2-drops already in cube. Like I'm fairly willing to be pretty like hardline on that.
I mean, I'm a little disheartened because the last time out we got Vanish into Memory.
That card is so bad.
That was the you make the card. Nick, I know that look really that does it for you. So yeah, my vote is still Black Creature, and if we can make it past the creature phase in week 1, we'll come back and talk more about what I'd like to see. But I don't think it's unrealistic to make a black 1 colorless 2/1, switch it up to Death Touch from First Strike, and then give us those abilities. And then again, you don't make it a May, and all of a sudden, well, you can't cast it on an empty board at a low life total, it kills itself. I know the downside is barely there, but having some kind of Phyrexian Rager. What is the card from Ravnica, the 2/2 flyer for 4? Keening Banshee or whatever?
Yeah, -2/2.
Yeah, jam those 2 cards together.
I mean...
And again, Black really needs 3-drops. It really needs more Sign of Blood type effects, but it also wants more Necrotal effects, but something other than Necrotal effects, because we can 1/8/7 non-Black creatures.
Like,
we just can't deal with other Black creatures, and Black's about to get better.
Black can even just use something that like brawls well at like the 3-ish spot. Like, like Black's creatures kind of stall out at like 2/2, maybe 3/3 occasionally. Like Richard Anurid is like about as big as it gets for like sub 4 mana Black creatures. Yeah. So like, not that this is realistic in any way, but like one double Black for like a 3/4 that's not as bad as like Nim Abomination or whatever that.
Well, we had Dead Reveler that we played in Cube for a little while.
Right, but he doesn't like he attacks fine, but he can't play D.
Okay.
Like a 3/4 that has like some other weird drawback or like some other funky thing on it, like that could just like fight in combat with other colors and creatures and like come out ahead, would be nice. Like,
I don't think it's impossible to put fight on a Black card. But
no.
Black already kills stuff, and at that point, like, why not just put some kind of 1/8/7 effect on it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I get behind that.
What's the best current red 2-drop?
In cube?
Yeah.
Karkin Dragon Lord?
He's real good.
Pretty solid. Karkin Dragon Lord.
I mean, depends. It's hard to say. Like, just...
I mean, we can take a quick look at the list.
Goblin Guide again?
Yeah,
Still
Goblin Guide on turn 2.
Still Goblin Guide?
Yeah, Karkin Dragon.
Like, Karkin Dragon Lord's
Lightning
very
Mauler, not so much.
Well, Slith Firewalker, that's a sweet one.
Slith Firewalker is sweet.
Could be. Playing 2 1-drops?
Yeah. I mean, like, we're currently not playing Ash Zealot. We're currently not playing something like Mog Flunkies, Stormblood Berserker.
What about like
the red creature what would a red creature on like the power level of like the Tarmogoyf quote unquote cycle
like
with Snapcaster and Orcana and stuff what would that card look like?
It has haste, 2 power, and deals damage when it enters the battlefield.
Yeah.
Equal to how much damage you've already dealt this to?
No, but even if it dealt like a fixed amount, like 2 or 3 damage to our creature or player.
That's already way better than like Fire and G2 Slinger. That's
right,
more,
but
it's more than we would get.
But it's way over. It's not more powerful than Tarmogoyf Snapcaster Mage.
What if it had some kind of like Goblin lore ability on it? When
What
there's
if
a
it was
battlefield, discard 2 cards at random, draw 3 cards.
What if it's like a 2/1 with like First Strike and haste, right? It's like Ash Zealot kind of thing. But then like when you cast it, like reveal a card at random from your hand. If that card is a red instant or sorcery, you can cast that card for free. Is that too good?
That's pretty red.
That's an interesting red thing.
Like it's random.
Definitely red.
Yeah.
It's
definitely not legacy power level playable.
No, but like it could, like that's a very aggressive red card that plays into red's strengths of like playing Burn and being random, like something like that.
Yeah.
Where it's like it's a decent creature that fights well, but it also has like this sweet way to just like go fast, and there's also some theoretical like live in the dream where you feel some
all these
crazy
things are very
thing.
likely, and that's the problem with trying to make a red creature in this environment is that the only way we're going to get more powerful things is if it's attached to the crazy Wheel of Fortune-y random style of red that's still prevalent in the color today. That's why I'm thinking something like Goblin Lore would be reasonable, but you could even do it in the Riptide Survivor style, where if this is the last... Like, you could play it early and have it be good, but if it's the last card in your hand, it's like a draw.
So like Dangerous Wager?
Similar to that. Well, I mean, not that bad. But that kind of concept where it's to me, it's like a 2-1 haste pro-red, because that would be sweet. 2-1 pro-red haste for red and 1. When it enters the battlefield, discard 2 cards at random, draw 3 cards.
I just don't think that effect would be good enough to play. Like, I don't think you would add it to Q.
Yeah.
At that power level. I think...
Like, yeah, that's not making the cut. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, the power level of what would need... Like, in order for this theoretical card to see play, its power level would have to be so high that there is no way R&D would let it through in a modern set.
Yeah, because I think it would have to be as good as deal some damage when it comes into play, and it would just, like, crush.
But these weak
breaks... It shouldn't even be when it comes into play. It should be like when you cast it, so even if they counter it, you still get the damage.
Yeah.
That helps. But it just seems like the lines in the sand for where the power level of the cards are very well defined. And all we're going to do is either break through them in a way where a bunch of cards become just so underpowered or irrelevant, or we're going to have to compromise and make something... I mean, the suggestion you made is probably the best. And that's so awkward when you're trying to play a real deck.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Like, yeah, and it probably even has some discard. Like, you reveal the card at random. If it's a red instant sorcery, you cast it for free. If it's not, discard it.
And again, that wouldn't be good. That wouldn't be good enough for Cube, that card.
No, like I think if it was like the suggestion I made, and it was also like a 2-1 first strike haste. Like,
for that way you don't always get anything.
Sure.
It's
because then at least it like can brawl well.
We could clearly say this card will not have 3 power.
Oh hell no!
Yeah, no.
We can clearly say it won't. And if it has 1 power, clearly no one will like it unless it does something really ridiculous.
And it probably won't have 2 toughness either.
Even if it was a 2-2.
I mean, it's most likely it would be a 2-1, do something silly.
I mean, we can pump it, like all of the things we brought up, we could pump it up to 2-2, and I don't think that's breaking anyone's balls.
Maybe.
I mean, it's just like... The thing is like... What do you... Like, again, what can you hope for that you're going to get out of this contest that's like a sweet red 2-drop? Like, they're just not going to print anything good.
I just really want a pro-red guy that's red.
I've heard that.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm just hammering on.
Thick-skinned goblin?
Right. But you have to pay to activate that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
You have to pay red to get a red. Yeah.
Anyway, so...
Those are our thoughts. Vote creature.
Yes, please.
Next week, vote black. And we'll slowly make the dream come through.
And if you don't vote black, or you vote something else, then we'll talk about whatever it looks like.
Yeah, I mean, as things slowly evolve. I mean, next week we will come back and we'll be like, well, we've got a land. What are we going to do? We hope not. We hope creature.
Yeah.
That's it for tonight. Before we leave you and make it in just under the 2-hour mark, once again, for those of us looking live, you're doing it right. Nothing to say here. You get to see all this sweet action as it comes in. And we only topped out at like 35 live viewers tonight. It was a bit of a letdown.
Yeah. These things happen.
Hit in the 50s until recently.
StarCraft 2's Heart of the Swarm just came out.
Oh my god. Are you saying that 2/5 of our audience would prefer to be somehow engaged by StarCraft 2 content?
The day after it came out, probably.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm a little detached. Okay, so for those of you watching live, you're doing it right. For everyone else, you can find us usually Wednesdays, hopefully getting closer to 9:30 Pacific Daylight Time, here on Twitch TV live for the Magic Box. If you don't, you can check out ekamon.blogspot.com for all the information on our show, as well as
MTGcast, YouTube, Twitter, the Twitch channel.
the Cube list is there.
We recently got the link to the podcast put up on the MTG Cube subreddit.
Oh, we're on the Reddit now.
On the Reddit.
The list has also been recently linked there. We'll answer questions there more. Thank you for everyone who's live here on the East Coast. We want to make things better for you. We tried to do one test run where we came in early in the afternoon. We felt like none of you East Coasters showed up, but maybe we just didn't get the word out well enough. We might try that again in the future. But things are on the up and up. We're picking it up. We will be probably, as soon as we get some good data in, we'll be looking for some sponsorship so we can bring you guys some bigger, better, badder content, especially right before Cube drafts go back online, because then we'll need to do some some additional content.
Doing a
will
lot
be,
of that.
Won't be great for the podcast-only community.
A lot of clicking.
I'm also very excited to say that we will hopefully have a very snazzy logo in the near future. I just got a lead today on somebody that you've probably heard of. This guy is huge. He's so huge.
Not like literally.
Not like literally,
He's
no.
out-
He's actually going the reverse of that. But this guy is so big, he's almost working pro bono for us. It's ridiculous. His rates are so astronomical, I didn't even know you could charge us for the things we're asking for. He's that big. Wait till you check out our new logo, hopefully in just a few weeks, if he isn't too busy creating amazing shit somewhere else. That's all I can say right now. So we are going to be doing stuff soon. For my two guests tonight, Louis the Boros Corso and Nick the Mum Edwards over here. Thank you guys for